Welcome to Phails. My name is Philip Jones, and today my guest is David Beaver. Wave to everybody, David.
Hi there. Really good to meet you all.
Yeah. David Beaver is a professor of linguistics and philosophy. He is director of cognitive science at UT. He is a dancer, and he's also a author, a writer. His latest book is The Politics of Language. This is his third book.
Yeah.
As well as a number of publications and probably academic journals. And I'm really excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm grateful for the plug on the book. I do have to mention my co-author, Jason Stanley.
Oh, yeah.
Down here. He's, although he's underneath me, he's like just as big. So
I imagine y'all did that alphabetically. Because David Beaver and then Jason Stanley. I actually thought of that when I looked inside. I was like, how did they decide who went first?
Yeah.
How did y'all decide who went first?
Well, there's two sides to any decision like this. There's who does what work and other stuff. This question of who goes first, like in psychology, the person that runs the lab goes last. The person...
It's like the captain goes down with the ship type of thing.
Yes, exactly. That's a good metaphor, but hopefully it stays afloat.
Yeah.
And then the grunt does who does a lot of the work in the psychology lab will go first.
Yeah.
If everyone was equal on a project, then alphabetical is a default. So for that reason, actually, people who are earlier in the alphabet get cited more because they're more often the first authors and people are more aware of them. So it's good to have a name beginning with B like I do. In this particular case, it's kind of a mix. I'm both earlier there, and I did some of the grunt work in the first half of the book that maybe we didn't really figure it out, but there's kind of a mixture there. But it's definitely a co-authored work.
Yeah. Jason Stanley and David Beaver.
Yeah, I shouldn't read too much into the order of authors.
Yeah.
Because one thing I can say is neither of us would have written the book without the other one. Mm-hmm. And I think that's all you need to know, really.
Yeah.
So
The Politics of Language by David Beaver and Jason Stanley. Latest book. And today, Phil fails at slow thinking. Slow thinking. We did a little discussion, a little talk about how to fail today and what to fail at, and we thought slow thinking would be a good way to say bias and heuristics.
Well, I wonder if we can slow even more, and if you can fail at slowing down, not only with your head, but with your whole body.
My whole body. Yeah, I like that. I think that's a really great invitation to the beginning of this talk. Yeah.
It's difficult. And I think this is just my perception for this. You correct me if I'm wrong here, but I've known you for a few years. I think we both like to go pretty fast.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Well, I think I have ADHD. I was diagnosed with ADHD.
I did not know that.
And neurodivergent in a lot of different ways. And I think impulsivity, hyperactivity is a big part of that.
Okay.
And I feel a lot of excitement now. And I think with that excitement might be a propensity to rush or like a...
So that's really interesting that you bring up like neurodivergence and what counts as divergence that is not normal.
Yeah.
So you're saying you have a particular way that you like to go about things and that if you give yourself the label, it's not normal.
I don't...
And that's fine, but... Yeah. It's interesting because, well, why? Like, why do we ask kids to sit in one place? And by slowing down, I don't mean don't move.
Yeah.
I think if a kid's fidgeting, probably they shouldn't be sitting down. That's my guess, but I'm not an expert on whether that makes a difference to educational outcomes or happiness of the child. But I think what I'd like to say is that people with ADHD actually have the ability for extreme focus at times.
Yeah.
So when you get into what's called a flow state, I talk about that in the psych literature.
Mahai Csikszentmihalyi.
So Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, as you say, let's just enjoy saying that.
Mahai Shahix Mahai. It took me a while to successfully say that name.
So this great Hungarian psychologist, he came up with this flow state idea where basically when you're in the flow state, it doesn't mean you're going quickly or slowly. It means you've managed to filter out a lot of other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And anyone who's going to get something big done has the ability to filter out a lot of other stuff. And then people with ADHD can have a type of hyperfocus that can be very productive. They can become, I have a friend who's, for example, does incredible biking stuff, who is, he's diagnosed with ADHD.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It could be an artist, whatever. So I'm interested in this ability you actually have there to slow down. To me, when you say you have ADHD, I'm hearing there's a lot of times when you're not ready to slow down.
We digress a little bit. You were, and we can get into that. We digress a little bit. You were saying that we've known each other a long time.
Oh, yeah.
And that we both have a tendency to go fast.
Yeah.
And I imagine you were going somewhere with that.
Well, we were talking about slowing down,
Mm-hmm.
and I took it that and then I commented that we both go fast. And I was taking it that you were thinking that maybe ADHD was a type of not being able to slow down.
Mm.
And where I wanted to go with this is, as far as I know, everyone has the ability to slow down. And people with ADHD in particular are known to have a stronger than normal ability to slow down. What they have is abilities to speed up and slow down that don't quite match the norm.
Right.
Rather than a lack of an ability to slow down. Like, sure, there are times when they're not ready to slow down. That's definitely true. And it can be real annoying if one of your best friends has ADHD and you're like, hey, can we just hang on for just a moment? Like, there are times when it could be annoying.
Yeah.
But there are other times when that friend is going to get into something. Like, I've been watching you patiently set up all the equipment around the room. You guys can't see all the work he's done because he's really focused on hiding all the wires, all the bits and pieces that are going to look bad in the shot, balancing this and that. That was slow thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was also a wealth of practice that took time to acquire, a lot of focus, a lot of concentration. So I'm seeing people with ADHD as not lacking the ability to slow down. And I wondered if that was maybe, you tell me, an implication of you bringing that up.
Yeah. Well, I feel great hearing what you're saying and almost sad.
Wow, really?
Like a tenderness or a sadness.
Yeah.
To hear. I think in my life I've tried a ton, or not tried, I've like done a ton of workshops and therapy and all these things to like stop being me.
Oh, right.
To like be normal in a world where it felt like I'm not okay in a lot of groups and settings.
Right.
Where the folks are like, no, thank you.
Okay.
And I don't know why that comes up. I guess hearing someone say, there's a space for you. You actually have these abilities that are wonderful. It hasn't been the overwhelming message that I've at least received from the world.
Well, we all need some affirmation, and
yeah, absolutely.
I think most of us are trying to be things we're not, and that's not bad. I don't want to say we shouldn't learn and grow.
Yeah, yeah.
But that also doesn't mean we have to feel bad about who we are, or maybe
motivation.
Maybe we need to find balance in that,
right?
And maybe it's not about I'm a terrible person.
Yeah,
I need to change. Like, that can be productive. You do something wrong, you want to learn from it.
That's like the benefit or the value of shame or guilt. There is a
benefit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But socially and even personally, there's a benefit or value. But it can tip the scale.
But there's a thing about a diagnosis that it's supposed to represent who you are at your very core. you have this property.
Mm-hmm.
A bit like I'm a short guy. That's not going to change. I'm not going to be in the NBA anytime soon.
Yeah.
And so there's what's called what's the term? We talk about a fixed mindset.
Mm-hmm. Versus a growth mindset.
Exactly. And my height is fixed. I can wear high heels, I guess.
Yeah.
But actually, I prefer being barefoot, so I'm going to stick with that.
Yeah.
And sure, that's limiting in some ways. People might even criticize me about it, so I better deal with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change that. But in terms of ways I think and ways I dance, I'm going to think and dance according to how much I practice, and I'm changeable.
Neuroplasticity.
Neuroplasticity, but also you like coming back to the brain, right? Also, absolutely bodily plasticity. Until we die, we have the capacity for change
In our body, and how we move our body,
and in our
its
minds.
flexibility, its range of motion.
And we also have the capacity. Before the interview, you mentioned this nice little thing. Practice makes permanent, as opposed to practice makes perfect.
Right.
We have the ability to freeze into ways of being, freeze into ways of moving. And as we get old, there's definitely a tendency, for good or bad, that we'll freeze into one way of being, and our body will slow down into just that way of being, lose the ability to move.
Yeah.
And I don't think change implies strong criticism of definitely not your core self.
Yeah.
It implies recognition that that self has the capacity for change. That flexibility is part of your core self.
Yeah.
And the ADHD diagnosis, just like my persona and the way I am, sure, they must be limiting, and they must reflect limitations that we have.
Yeah.
But they don't mean that we can't grow and change in positive ways. So I think whatever ways you want to change, I'm thinking it's not in changing your core being.
Yeah.
Because probably you don't have a choice about that. But also, probably it doesn't need to change. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think? Do you think it needs to change?
I think 1 second, I'm going to close the bathroom door because I hear that. You hear that sound?
I heard it, yeah.
And I notice my attention is going to it more than I'd like it to. And so I'm going to close the door.
I do not want to compete with that sound.
Neither do I. Yeah. You were talking about core characteristics, the fixed part of our personality and our core self, and then experiences that we have designed to improve or to grow or to kind of learn.
Right.
And I think the question I heard at the end of that was like, how are you with that?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my life, and we'll get to the question soon, I feel a little in the light, both, physically and also emotionally. A lot of my life, I got the message from a young man that I wasn't okay. That I needed to be different. And I am a seeker, much probably because all the models I had weren't helpful.
Good.
So my seeking has been for a long time a running away from something as opposed to running to something.
That's well put. I've been thinking about this. Carry on.
Yeah, the idea that, I've got to change, whether it was like, I need to get better so this relationship works. I need to be a different person. I need to communicate different so this relationship works. Or I need to be a different person. I need to show up differently in the world so that I can stay at a job forever. so that I can be in groups, social groups, or so that I can, a book that has resonated with me and I've spoke about in this more than once or twice is this book by Carolyn McGuire called Why Won't Anybody Play With Me?
Ah, okay. I don't know the book, but it sounds
It talks about
like right on point.
ADHD and like these folks that from just a slight percentage perspective, from just statistics and probability, they're asked to do things less. They're not invited to birthday parties. They don't find those friendships because I think folks see them and go, that person's a little odd. And they use the fast thinking that you talk about. And so subtly say, no, thank you. Or they're ostracized from groups or teams, which I experienced growing up.
Right.
And so
I want to be careful about that, jumping to it being fast thinking, because I think many people who are socially gifted have very rapid intuitions about empathic intuitions about what people they're with are looking for, so that they can socially orient themselves using the fast aspects of their brain. And often the people who seem awkward are the ones that are spending a bit more time thinking. But sometimes they're thinking about things that if you think too hard, you lose the moment. And people are looking, for example, for instant positive feedback at some moment, for example. And instead of just saying, "You did great, Phil," they're like, "Let me think about it. Yeah, I think you did a." And by that point, you're like thinking he didn't like it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting with the Phil Phails. I'm kind of picking up on this theme. That it's almost like you're interpreting people as thinking you've failed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe you're ready to jump to this being because you think too fast. I don't want to make that leap with you. I was with you up till that point.
Yeah.
Here I want to be a bit cautious about thinking too fast about, this is meta, thinking too fast, coming too quickly to the conclusion that thinking fast is always the problem, thinking slow is always right.
There's some middle way.
Yes, there's a middle way, and the middle way is knowing when to deploy your ability to think slow and when to deploy your ability to think fast. And one of the hardest things is to become better at that. And I can't go on about thinking fast and slow or being fast and slow, but thinking fast and slow without referencing a book that I'm teaching from at the moment that we mentioned in talking earlier by, not this book,
Okay.
not my book, Daniel Kahneman.
Okay.
Thinking Fast and Slow. This has been a New York Times bestseller for years. And Daniel Kahneman, a Nobel Prize winner, just died a couple of weeks ago. Amazing guy. The book is, I've read this book more than a dozen times, and I get something from it each time. There's very few experiences that I would want to repeat that many times, feeling that I would learn each time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But this is one of those things. So I want to give credit there, but we're also extending that when we go from thinking fast and slow to being fast and slow. He doesn't talk much about bodies.
Yeah.
He doesn't talk about breathing. Not too much. And we're in some overlapping communities. It's Austin, so everyone's doing this new age weird thing.
Well, David and I we met when you came to move into the house that I lived in on the east side.
Curiously enough.
And then we met again years later at Ecstatic Dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we do know each other through kind of is that conscious communities, or what would you call that? Kind of more
I
new
think
age?
it's a good conscious community seems like a more positive label to me than New Age. New Age seems like some outsider is looking at it and thinking,
Yeah. Did
conscious,
you do? Go ahead. Did you do authentic relating or circling or any of those types of things?
Oddly, I've always been a little allergic to getting too into like the kind of self-examination in a group.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I think I'd probably enjoy it. A bunch of my friends have said, "Come, you would love it," and maybe I would. I'm not saying I wouldn't because I haven't done it.
Yeah,
but I know so many people in our community that do that, and I've heard good and bad about how it's worked out for people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in the end, it's partly of all the things that you could try. I haven't got around to that one.
Yeah.
Or those. So.
But we know each other from ecstatic dance and living in houses. You moved into the house that I lived in.
Yeah.
So we lived in the same space.
We shared a space at different times. And I totally sense Phil in that special little blue house.
The echoes of my little family. Yeah, you were the ghost of the events that happened in my little family there.
We have, if not eaten at the same table, then at least eaten from the same fridge. So.
For sure. This is a good time, I think, to start the Phil Fails 5 questions.
Good. What do you want to fail at, Phil?
We're gonna fail. We're gonna fail at slow thinking.
Okay.
Phil fails at slow thinking, and the first question I'll ask is kind of maybe the obvious, maybe not so obvious, but how can Phil fail at slow thinking?
If Phil goes into the voting booth and just checks the boxes for the people on his team, he's done something easy. And it's interesting, this fail. Is that going to be a failure? I might really like the outcome, what you voted for.
If it was all Democrat or all Republican, is that what you
Whatever
mean?
it is, I might like it or I might not like it.
Yeah.
So what counts as failure here, right? So you might have done something that I would think was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another sense in which you would have failed to properly, let's say, employ the sort of judgment needed for the democratic process to really work. Yeah?
Yeah.
Different example. I love giving this one to but it's not a failure. Tell me what you think about it. I love giving this one to the students in my class. I'm teaching a class on bias at the moment. Mm-hmm. Really great students, 40 students. They come in, and after the first day, most of them will sit in the same seats they sat in the first day. If someone's in the seat, they'll sit very close to that seat. I've asked them, they don't care deeply, right, about where they sit. Why are they sitting in the same seats? The answer is, it's the easy way to go. Basically, only turn on your slow thinking brain when there's a danger signal, when you sense something's wrong. Otherwise, do what comes natural. What comes natural? What you did last time comes natural. Your fast-thinking brain has internalized, and your body has internalized the process of walking into the lecture theater on this particular door, walking down the aisle about this far, breathing in a certain way, holding your backpack in a certain way, starting to, at the right moment, sling it out and slide into the seat. Your body has internalized that. It requires no stress, no effort. If you were spending too much time thinking about where to sit, you would probably end up, in some sense, failing at life because you'd be stressed out all the time.
Yeah, it's some kind of autopilot that allows you to just relax and get some
You don't want to be hypervigilant all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Likewise, when someone is, now imagine someone's talking to you and you're in a car lot. So they're talking to you in a car lot. They're trying to sell you a car. That person is going to try and make the conversation feel really comfortable, like I hope our conversation feels right now. Like I don't feel that you're trying to sell me something.
Yeah.
And I hope you don't feel that I'm trying to sell you something. But in the car lot, although the salesperson might make you feel that way,
They want to sell you something.
they want to sell you something. What they don't want is to allow your hypervigilance about, is this a good sale,
to kick in.
to dominate. What they want is your what Kahneman calls ability to substitute one question with another to come in. What does that mean? The question is, what car shall I buy? Right?
Yeah.
The salesman wants to replace that with, am I having a good time and do I trust this guy?
Yes. Because you'll buy if you feel relatability.
If the salesperson can manage to get you to focus on that, and that person is a grandmaster at sincerity. That is, like every salesman likes to say, the most important thing is sales. In sales is sincerity. If you can fake that, you can sell anything. Just scary.
Fake that. Interesting.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of Dan Pink's book, To Sell is to Be Human.
To buy is to be human.
To buy is to be human.
Definitely to be American. Curiously, I actually got my American passport 2 days ago. I became an American a couple of weeks ago.
You're an American citizen now?
I am now an American citizen, so I know all about buying.
Should we do the...
Yeah.
I don't even remember it.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
I need more practice at that.
The Pledge of Allegiance.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I don't remember. We did it every day in school.
To the flag of the United
States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It sounds good to me, Phil.
Oh my God.
You're a better American than I am.
So failing one at slow would be to implore it all the time.
That is well put, Phil. I agree. Yeah.
And the other one was the first thing you said about failing at slow thinking was...
Let's just pick the reverse. Not applying it when it's important, like in the voting booth.
In the voting booth.
More generally, informing political opinions. People go for this fast associative thinking. Conspiracy theorists love to think they're thinking. They love to think they're doing the research.
Mm-hmm.
What they're actually doing, like with numerologists and people coming up with strange associations, they're actually doing an interesting poetic thing of connecting things wildly that your fast-thinking bit of the brain is good at doing. Your fast-thinking bit of the brain is very good at getting stereotypes of people saying, yeah, that fits, this story fits. They're not doing slow, careful, logical thinking, but they don't know it. They don't recognize that what they're doing is just seeing patterns very easily that their brain is good at doing. What they're doing is a lot of fast thinking over time.
Yeah.
That's different from slow thinking.
Second question is, how does someone succeed at slow thinking? What would its success look like?
My first temptation is to say that it's like art. I know it when I see it. I think there's no limit on how much you can slow down on any particular bodily movement or question. I think the answer must be a personal one, that success is if you slow down on the things that are important to you, so that you develop a mindful approach to the big questions in your life, And an easy way of flowing through the parts of life that provide the backdrop.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier in the first question this idea that slow thinking is really important when it's important. When there's danger.
That's the trick. Recognizing, oh, I'm in a... So think about when it's right to be looking around all the time when you're walking in the street. There are definitely places where you want to be very aware.
Yeah.
And times when if you're looking at your phone, someone's going to mug you, steal the phone.
Or you get hit by a bike, or you get hit by a car.
You get hit by a bike, right.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be bad actors. It can just be reality.
Just
has potholes in it.
Yeah, potholes.
And you could put your foot in one. But then if you're spending your whole time looking over your shoulder, you won't be able to attend to anything else.
Yeah.
So you need to find places in your life, which might be Phil's living room here, right here, where you have the ability to feel comfortable with your surroundings and engage in things that matter to you.
Yeah. Slow down. So success is in discernment of application. When are we slowing down? Are we correctly assessing, oh, this is really important to me. This really matters. And this one over here, it doesn't really matter. Whether it's walking in a part of forest where there's a bunch of bears and you should be bear wary.
Right.
Or if it's...
In the end, you failed when you get eaten by a bear. Until that point, it worked fine for you.
Yeah.
So I think what we can conclude is there's no particular bar for that you've got to hop over to do. I've got to do at least that amount of slow thinking, or I've got to slow think on at least these occasions. You can always better direct your energy and learn from times when you think, I wish I'd thought that through. But also learn from times when you think, I think I put too much energy into that. You said something to me as you were setting up for this interview. You said, I commented on whether the camera was a fraction of the degree.
Yeah, you were looking at the lines.
I was looking at the lines, and I asked you the question, and you gave me a very wise response, which is that you'd learned that, correct me if I misrepresent you here, you'd learned that sometimes perfection wasn't what you should aim for.
For me, I think I said.
No, but I think that was very wise for all of us, right? The perfect is the enemy of the good, as the expression goes.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think in the case of slow thinking and fast thinking, we can learn to think, oh, I spent too much time perfecting this particular thing. I was making soup for this bunch of people. I took half an hour worrying about the exact proportions of these ingredients. And you know what happened? Everyone got real hungry.
Yeah.
The soup was perfect, and they were certainly hungry and appreciated it when it came. But maybe they would still have appreciated it if I hadn't spent quite so long deliberating about how much Tabasco should be in there and had just gone for it.
You might be very wise, and I know this doesn't fit into your story, but do you know what the perfect seasoning is for food?
What is the perfect seasoning for food? I don't know.
Hunger.
That's another wise remark, Phil. That fits with my story very well. I agree that
maybe you were
hunger and marijuana are both things that really improve the quality of food.
For sure. Question 3, and I'd like to, for the next 3, 4, and 5, kind of get into practices or things that I could invite into my life to start exercising or are practicing more slow thinking.
Good.
So what are some
I
things?
love this term practice, but ask your question.
Yeah, practice. You know, a lot of folks get this term with their profession. You know, a legal practice. I like that. This idea that you're not doing a legal perfection. You're not doing a chiropractic perfection. You're doing a practice. These are all, and that's Phil Phails is about. For me, this show is about me realizing that I can just be imperfect and let that be witnessed and grow observed, grow through experience over and over and over again till greater optimization and greater, perfection. But I'll never reach a pinnacle because there isn't one. And I want to teach the viewers to just start doing whatever it is they want to do.
Wait, did you guys know you were in a classroom? I don't know.
I don't know.
Well, you are. How are you going to teach them this, Phil?
Well, hopefully they'll watch all the interviews and see the lighting improve and see the audio improve and see the way that I relate to guests improve and learn from the guests, much like I do. And
Right. I like that. Practice is this kind of manifold word that has different sides to it. There's like, if I practice, I'll get to do something. And then there's different practices in the world. There's the idea of practices, for example, practices of movement.
Mm-hmm.
People in our community, what do we call it, conscious community, like to have movement practices and voice practices. So they use the word practice a lot. But I also use it in a work context differently. I'm a very happy person this week because two wonderful, I want to give some more plugs here, two wonderful doctoral students of mine just defended their dissertations.
Yes.
Yeah, one, Venkat, has a PhD dissertation on in-group and out-group language.
What is their name?
He's Venkat.
Venkata
Govindaran. So that's his name, Venkat.
I'll need a little bit more time on it, but I trust everybody caught it.
And then I may have messed up his name, and I apologize to you, Venkat, if I did. But
what was his thesis or his dissertation?
That one is on in-group and out-group language. So here's a question. If you're talking about people who are part of your team, like it could be a guy talking about other guys, it could literally be talking about other people who support the same team, it could be other people in the same political party, it could be people with the same age or they go to the same university.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Got in-groups are groups of people who are like-minded and busy with related practices.
Right.
And the out-group is the other team. And so if we suppose someone does something and I want to talk about it, how will I talk about that same thing that I saw someone do according to whether it's my guy or the other guy, us versus them?
The same behavior, how do we talk about it for an insider versus an outsider?
Right.
And I think of the word tribalism as we're talking about in-group and out.
Absolutely. That's a good word to use. So we actually do talk differently about in-groups and out-groups. We tend, for example, there's a theory called linguistic intergroup bias. A bunch of psychologists came up with big words. Suppose one of my guys does something bad. I'll tend to be pretty specific about that. He acted a bit quick. He dropped it because he was in a bit of a hurry. Yeah. Suppose someone on the other team could be racial team, gender, political, whatever it is, someone on the other team, because I have these biases, does something. My quick and dirty automatic instinct might be a bit more to say, those guys are so careless.
Or even they're nefarious.
He is so careless.
They did that on purpose.
Could even twist it that way. But here, just look at the difference between saying something very specific, he was in a hurry, and something general, he's careless.
Yeah. One's an ad hominem attack.
Well, one isn't an attack at all. Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
He's careless,
you're right.
Ad hominem, kind of like it's his person. It's his character to be careless,
and it suggests something about the whole group as
context.
Well.
Yeah.
It's like, because whatever it is, he's in a group that I am suspicious of. I'm ready to attribute anything I see wrong to broad properties of the group.
Yeah. As opposed to
I never said anything really nasty about that whole group directly, and I didn't say we're never careless or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it can come out through this tendency. That's the idea of linguistic intergroup bias. So what my student Venkat has worked on is the more general question of how our biases towards in-groups and out-groups are reflected in the language we use. And he's done that looking at using big modern computer technology with these large language models and other stuff like that to rattle through hundreds of thousands or millions of tokens of text and figure out general patterns of the way people behave.
Whoa.
Yeah. So that's that one. And the other student who just defended her thesis on Wednesday, three days ago, is a woman called Anne Quaranto. Hi, Anne. And her thesis, actually, this is partly why I brought it up. That was the segue. It largely concerns the nature of practice. But here, she's a philosopher. So her thesis concerns certain practices that we don't always like, and certain practices that may be a good thing. So consider the practice of dog whistling in politics, which is one she talks about. That's when you say something that seems harmless, but actually there's something under the surface that your in-group is recognizing.
Right.
Yeah? So a classic example is a politician talking about welfare or the inner city.
Yeah.
They're actually signaling, this is a claim at least that's made in the literature, they're signaling to their own people, this stuff is bad, this is maybe stuff, it can be racist. They're maybe signaling, we don't like the way people of a certain color behave or use the state.
Yeah.
Something like that. And they can signal those things without using any bad words. But let's go to the opposite. Bad words, slurs. So there are practices of using slurs, but this is another chapter of her dissertation. We can also sometimes reclaim those slurs. So the example that she devotes most effort to is the word queer, where people in the gay community, the LGBTQ community, as it came to be known later, reclaimed the word queer so that although it can still be used in a purely slurring negative sense, it's also something that people can take pride in.
Yeah.
So there are practices of using words. In this case, practices by in-groups to label out-groups, but also practices that in-groups can use to build their own solidarity.
Yeah, group cohesion.
And if they succeed in using this term in a certain way, it can even become, that is, if they succeed in subverting the nasty use of the term, it can even lose its venom and become in general a term we can all use. That's what's happened with the word queer, where it's fine for me to use the word queer. That's not insulting. There are other words like the N-word where...
Yeah, I've been thinking about that as you're talking about, giving examples of this. I'm in a...
Where
quickly,
it still has its venom.
Well, not for the group.
Right.
the group used
Well,
it, have empowered it, and
This is actually a question that came up in the defense itself, but sometimes for that particular word, it does actually have venomous uses within the in-group as well. It has both uses. Yeah.
well, I think of another word associated with homosexuality that in England refers to a cigarette,
Right.
which I'm not going to say the F word.
Right.
It's not the normal F word, but it's the one associated with
Right.
homosexuality. And that obviously isn't normalized for everybody because I don't feel comfortable saying it.
Yeah. It clearly, and that one, as viewers may have figured out, I'm British originally, despite
So you got my reference to the cigarette.
absolutely. So despite the fact that I'm waving an American flag at every opportunity these days, I also have a British passport.
I didn't know you could have both.
You can have both.
Anyway, go on. I don't want to digress.
We can talk about that if you like.
No.
But you're allowed to have both Britain and the US.
Well, go
allow
on.
that. And so to me, that term that you're talking about is not quite as offensive as other terms that you might have used. So there's no need particularly for us to be throwing slurs about that might offend someone.
Yeah.
But to me, that word isn't quite as offensive. And but it's very interesting. It's right to be sensitive, not knowing who the audience is and who might find it offensive. If there's no particular need to use it, we don't need to use it just for the hell of it. Sometimes it can be helpful if people don't know what the hell we're talking about, but they've got the internet, so they'll figure it out.
Yeah. Sometimes I think offending people can be a healthy or a wise strategic plan for marketing. Get folks agitated about something, they all talk about it, and you get the old adage, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Right.
I don't want to play that here with you today.
There's another thing that actually ties into what we're talking about, which in linguistics is called positive politeness. And that's about forming solidarity, about getting closer. And one way we can do that, one of many ways, is by actually throwing insults at each other. So
I do that with the guys that I rock climb with.
it's very much a bunch of guys or a bunch of women together. That's one time that you'll see it. A woman might use the S word to talk about another woman there when she was eyeing a guy.
Yeah.
And it's like, by saying that, what she's saying at some level is we can say anything to each other.
We're intimate.
We're intimate enough that there's no holds barred.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important for...
And if I call you, you fucker, what
Yeah.
are you doing?
Yeah.
Give it back.
Yeah.
So if we're in a position where we're close enough to do that, then I've actually succeeded in reaffirming our in-group connection.
A bond, yeah.
Yeah, our bond by doing that. And the use of this particular slur in the Black community that is bonding works partly through positive politeness. This is not to say I'm explaining it away. It has its own history. It's complicated.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that's going on is that there's nothing we can't say to each other. That's just one of the things that's going on. But yeah, it's interesting, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. So well done, Anne and Venkat. Congratulations. Yeah.
Yeah, congratulations, guys.
But to connect back, in case
Yeah, to the question, what kind of practices?
The question was about practice. And so there we're looking at practices. Actually, it's an interesting example, maybe not what would have come to mind. A practice that gets subverted, changed because it's no good. That is the practice of saying the word queer, gets subverted and replaced with a new practice that sounds the same, but it's used in different contexts. And I think there's, not only is it an example of a practice that gets changed, but it's also a good metaphor for how we might modify our practices as we go, rather than imagining that we're stuck with whatever it is.
Would an example of that be, in my life, at some point I realized that I could use the word and instead of but in
That's
sentences
nice.
because they normally, either one will work. and but seem to be more aggressive. That's not quite the right word,
Yeah.
but it's more, I don't know, but seemed to be a negative connotation for what was going to happen next or
Right.
what came before it.
Right. This is very subtle, and I think both and but are very important words. But you're absolutely right that but can seem combative and is bringing up a way of speech in general. So here's a standard theory that actually we were talking about in a seminar a couple of days ago at my work at UT. It said, so when do people say this but that?
Yeah.
When they say, it's raining, but I've got my coat. When do they say
It's raining and I've got my coat would also work.
When do they say he's good looking, but when are they doing that?
Because you're negating the thing that you said before the but, right?
So the claim in the literature that a number of people have made, one guy, I'll give you a nice long name for the sake of it, a guy called Mazia Tusavardani has discussed this at length. Some really nice work on this. Another pair, a guy called Henk Zevat, who's a close friend of mine, and a woman who's also a friend, Katya Yasinskaya. So what's the theory? The idea that you can say this and that when this provides one argument for something, but that provides an argument against it. So should I date the guy? Well, he's good looking, but I've heard some people say some things. So
Two arguments.
Not that I've heard some people say some things doesn't mean it was false that he's good looking, and he's good looking doesn't mean it's false that I've heard some people say some things. But these are both arguments that concern the question of, I don't know, should I date the guy? Should I hang out with him? Should I start a business with him? Should I do an interview with him? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
In a context like that, one would be an argument for, the other would be an argument against.
But it seems like,
so we're getting.
It seems like to me that what happens after the but is raised a little bit aloft of the first one.
I think that's right. It's adversarial. So we're getting into an adversarial way of thinking and talking by using but. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes that's appropriate. Sometimes we want to have an argument. That is, we're discussing something, we want to put different sides of it.
Yeah.
And if we weren't allowed to nuance it with but, it's like, well, like we've lost something.
But at other times, the practice though, getting back to the question, is that an example? Instead of doing away of something, just saying, I'll put.
Absolutely. I don't want to talk over you. I'm sorry. But I think this is getting exactly to a practice. So when would this adversarial practice mix badly with another practice? Well, how about if you're listening to someone and they make you an offer? That is, I don't mean make you an offer, literally give you something, but they put something on the table. And you agree, but you're qualifying, restricting, nuancing, rather than just being open and listening. You're not listening at that point. You're giving a counter opinion. So I think people, you're really into improv of a
theatrical realm, yeah.
Yeah, and I said not just because we've been talking about contact improv, a particular type of dancing, before the interview. So in improv theater, for example, I think there's a thing where you're encouraged when someone puts something out there, an improv partner, you're encouraged to agree and then add to it.
Yes, and.
Yeah.
Is yeah.
Yeah, that's a practice. Here we've got a bunch of practices of theatrical improv, and this is just a core part of the practice that I think people learn quite early on. Yeah?
Yeah.
Maybe they learn, once they're secure with it, they can mess with it with people.
You can yes and by no butting. But yeah.
This is getting complicated.
It is complicated.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yes anding.
it's complicated. Likewise, no can mean yes. I don't mean in a sense of like consent. I mean in the sense of you ask me and I say, no, that's exactly right. That doesn't mean I'm disagreeing with you.
Yeah.
And there's no consent issue. It's not about whether he said yes or he said no. It's like, so who am I talking to when I say no here? Am I talking to myself? Am I telling you that I had another way of thinking that was wrong? Or am I correcting you?
Yeah. And when you say no, yes, you're right, the first two are to yourself. You say, no, I was wrong, I'm mistaken. And the last one is,
so I want
you're
to
right.
distinguish the practice of saying yes or the practice of saying and from the practice of affirming, offering affirmation and confirmation. I think it's oversimplistic to think that when you use but, you're being adversarial and failing to go with someone. It could be that that's exactly what's needed. What someone is seeking is nuanced discussion and argument. And in that case, if you pussyfoot around, you won't ever engage. Yeah. Likewise with dance, which maybe we'll get onto sometime.
Yeah.
Someone who's too soft can feel like a very bad partner.
Yeah.
Someone who's grabbing you and pulling you feels like a very bad partner.
Yeah.
Someone who's got a certain amount of firmness, they yield at the right time and push back just enough when you're asking for it, when you're ready for it.
Yeah.
That's a good partner. Then we have an interplay.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
That's in the practice of dancing, but I feel that
it's an improv too.
Absolutely. And I feel that there are practices of talking, many practices in many situations. For a therapist to say, yes, that's true, but that doesn't mean the therapist is a bad therapist. It means they've decided they want to push you on a certain issue because it's important for them to do that. Now, there might be certain practices of therapy where you avoid that. Who knows? I'm not able to say what works or what doesn't work. But it can be a conscious choice. I think that's what I'm getting to.
Yeah, it seems
and I think what I worry about, and maybe what you're trying to correct, is the gut reflex, which is defensive, of just saying but automatically, using the fast system, the fact that you've learned this, I think, self-protective approach of not giving your interlocutor too much in one go, but holding stuff back by saying, yeah, but I have my own integrity and my own view, and I'm going to give it to you right now. Yeah. I think that's defensive and shows that you're not ready to yield at the right moment. So you're trying to change your practice, if I'm understanding what you're saying, right?
Yeah, I had been.
From a practice of saying somewhat automatically, yes, but, to somewhat automatically, yes, and, as a default.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that on a given occasion, you can't decide, is it okay if we go a bit deeper here? Because I'm really curious.
Let's go.
No, but here I'm giving this as an example. I wasn't asking you to do it, but let's do it.
Yeah.
Right? So is it okay if we go a bit deeper here?
Yes.
Good. I'm messing with you. So we want to learn to automatically, I think you're suggesting you want to learn, but I think I want to learn the same thing, to automatically, with most people in most situations, be ready to hear what they have to say.
Yeah.
And then only when it's called for, switch into not necessarily more adversarial, but a more contemplative, questioning mode. And let me use the word curiosity. So we want the yes buts to come out in the form of curiosity if the conversation is to be productive. So let's suppose that I'm talking to someone who's much more religious than me. And there are many people who would think of themselves as more religious and would think of me as a kind of godless heathen. okay? And I'm having a conversation. When is that going to be a good conversation? It's going to require work on both sides, just like a good dance demands work on both sides. It's not going to work if I just shut them down or tell them from the beginning when they're trying to tell me something, yes, but I don't accept this. Like I'm already putting up barriers.
Yeah. You're shutting
The
it
but
down.
is a barrier. It's a limit. You can go this far, but no further.
Yeah.
So developing that practice of talking with each other when we have big differences, not getting into an echo chamber situation where I'm behind this wall and you're behind that wall, and we're only hearing the echoes from our own walls.
Right.
Avoiding that is going to mean developing practices of discourse, of conversation. Practices that we have to learn. So there's some slow thinking in learning them, like you're slowly taking on and thinking about. It's still a conscious effort. I have to say yes and, not yes but. But once we've got into that practice as a default, so that it comes quickly and automatically, we don't have to second guess the fact that we said yes and, then we also have the space to be vigilant and know when is the right time to say yes but.
Yeah.
And we can perhaps open up a space with someone who's very different from us, if we're lucky.
Yeah.
And I should say, I fail at this all the time. But if we're lucky, we can get into a space with someone that's probably going to start with more of the yes ands, but where we've got enough of a bond despite our differences that we're ready to be curious about the parts of what they're saying that don't meet
Yeah. The buts.
right. They
The
don't.
boundaries. I think of boundaries.
Absolutely.
But, yeah.
They overstep what we're comfortable with. And I'm listening despite the fact that it's uncomfortable.
You take it in, you're willing to be flexible and malleable and to learn from them, even though there's areas that really conflict with your worldview. And the thing that I thought of was what you mentioned earlier about polite positivity.
Good.
This
Positive
idea of
politeness is like
positive
the
politeness,
term.
where
But I like polite positivity too. That's,
positive, what was the term is?
I don't like the term either. Positive politeness.
Positive politeness. It's almost like the no but is an invitation into intimacy. By disagreeing with someone, you've said, we've got this foundation.
Exactly. You've connected
Stay
the circle.
with me with this.
That
Don't
was
walk
exactly
away.
the circle in my mind that you've just connected. You've joined the dots, if you like.
Yeah.
So when we're ready to have that type of conversation, which isn't just a matter of our relationship, but how are you feeling right now, Phil? You're feeling okay?
Yeah.
If you're feeling okay, then we can have it.
Yeah.
If you've had a rough day,
Maybe not.
and likewise, if I've had a rough day, even though you might be ready for it, I probably shouldn't be entering into that territory because
Yeah.
I won't be sensitive enough to slow down and be curious at the right moments.
Right.
I'll get defensive. I'll switch into the no, I've got barriers mode too quickly.
Yeah. You won't have the rapport and the relationship robustness to withstand some push and pull and some adversarial play.
Yeah.
But not adversarial attacks or fighting. It's really that invitation into intimacy to explore our boundaries.
Yeah.
In ways that might be a little bit uncomfortable because they're different.
Right. And then we can get into this slow way of thinking together. Yeah. Where parts of it we can navigate easily. So we learn to talk to each other. We learn what words will upset each other and what words will make the other person feel comfortable. We learn how to sit together. In my life, coming from where I came from, I spent a lot of time in the pub.
Mm-hmm.
That was a place where people in definitely my generation in Britain would feel comfortable, and we could have a lot of meaningless conversations, no doubt, but we could talk about anything.
Yeah.
Because we had this level of comfort in the space. And indeed, you could meet a stranger in that space, someone very different from you, and both know that you felt comfortable enough to have any type of argument or any type of storytelling, or if the night wore on, singing, not necessarily in tune, whatever it was.
I remember that.
Yeah.
When Rachel, my ex-wife, when we were in Oxford, I spent a lot of times at Wolfson College at the pub late into the evening talking about all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
And singing. And you're right. Something about that context made it almost endowed or primed with connection and intimacy, or a willingness, or a...
It does. And I think it's, although I love beer and other drinks, it's almost a pity that there's too much of a focus. Like, the only place I know in Britain where that's that comfortable has a focus on alcohol, because I think that that's really a shame, partly because it means it's not a place where families are comfortable, partly because the alcohol itself is not all positive. And so, but I don't know any other place at the same time that embodies that spirit of conviviality and ease that allows very different people to get together, usually positively. I've known a few bars where things might get out of hand.
Well, yeah, and I remember some things got out of hand at Wolfson Pub. I thought the alcohol might help that, might be a lubricant to that, and I don't really drink much anymore, or do much of anything other than this. I indulge myself.
What's this conversation in your living room?
Well, conversating, learning, seeking, learning from folks.
Yeah,
being a mentee. And I brainstormed the other day, well, what would it look like to have a different type of space where adults could go together and play?
And this talk of drinking has made me suddenly want to raise a glass.
Let's raise a glass. Cheers. Or mason jars.
A mason jar of water will do the job.
Yeah. So I think we've spent the time that would be afforded for all 5 questions. Although, can you think of any actual practices, some folks would say, for getting in touch with your intuition, or you might do morning pages, you might wake up and write in the morning, or folks that were into meditation, they would say, well, just sit on your mat and for at least 5 minutes a day, close your eyes or soften your gaze and be with your thoughts or without your thoughts. Are there any practices that you think I would invite into my day around slow thinking or around this topic?
When I talk to you, the things that come up, things like talking to people, you talk a lot about, you go back to books pretty regularly in our conversation. You'll quickly go back to that. You talk about movement practices like climbing and dance. And you also have a meta practice of questioning your practices, and which you're doing right now, and asking if you should change them. I would say, of all of those, that last one, asking that question occasionally, but not too often, that's the most important. But I would say what you've presented to me is very balanced, and I would not be in a position to advise you with one practice. Meditation, for example, has a big impact for many people. It's not a practice that I engage in, or at least anything that other people would describe to me as meditation. What I kind of got kind of good at as an academic, is, and as an author, is thinking hard about things for quite a long time.
Yeah. Philosophy. Oh my goodness. Yeah.
And actually enjoying the process of things not making sense and then getting clarified and being able to sustain thoughts over years. This project was an 8-year project.
Wow.
Yeah. So there are things that we were busy with in our heads for a long time. And what might look like meditation to someone else is actually me thinking about something that I find interesting. I don't do meditation where I'm just trying to, for example, empty myself. I do love occasionally coming into connection with bits of my body by actually thinking, oh, how does the heel of my foot feel right now? And now everyone listening is like, oh, I can feel the ground against my foot, or I can feel the chair in your case with one foot and the carpet, the rug with the other. So you become conscious of these things. I don't know if that's called meditation.
I think your dance, contact improv and ecstatic dance can be a form of meditation.
Absolutely.
This invitation into the present moment.
So if we use the term that broadly, then you're already doing it.
Yeah.
And so I'm not able to advise what practices are going to work for you, but I think if you're a seeker, as you said, and you're ready to assimilate the practices and ways of thinking that work for you, that add harmony for you, perhaps introduce a little discord at times, a little discomfort as you adjust, but in search of a greater harmony.
Yeah.
If you're able to do that, to ask those questions, if you have those meta practices, those high level practices, then you'll find the lower level individual practices that work for you. And as far as I can tell, that is what you've been doing. You have built this practice that you have right now from scratch. The practice that we're engaged in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. You are building, but you didn't. Sure, you had some models to borrow from.
Yeah.
But you created that and you're developing that. Seems to me that ability to seek for new practices and adapt them gradually, that's the most important practice.
I think this is my new experiment on how to make friends and build community and learn from people and get intimate relationships.
Right.
I think if I have this platform, folks will say yes and come talk to me and have extended conversations with me, and maybe come back and we'll have them over time, different conversations.
Good. So that's beautiful. And obviously it relates to stuff that my authentic relating friends, other than you, also talk about the space that they're trying to create, where they're comfortable exchanging things that would otherwise cause discomfort and perhaps cause the conversation to end. Yeah. And so curating a space like that where people can harmonize is difficult. And you do it in a different way than someone who just goes down to the pub like everyone else they know and just uses the practice that already exists.
Yeah.
Which is how I grew up. From like age 16 on, that was the kind of culture that I was, let's say, learning and becoming enculturated into. It felt very easy because other people already had the practice, and I could just follow them. What you're doing is something braver, of building your own practice.
Yeah, and I'm in touch with the wound at the base of it now, and thinking it's not all of it, but I think the wound that was at the base of my previous career, or the career I'm kind of overlapping with now, when software, I thought, how can I learn something where the value of what I know is greater than the negative impact of my character?
Right.
And then this one, I'm
not accepting freely that your character has a negative impact, but I get totally what you're saying.
This is the wound. This is the shadow. And I think maybe this whole process here, this new one, the wound is, can I have a platform of sharing with the world other folks that will allow them to come and be with me and accept my imperfection? And not that that's what you're doing or what anybody would do, but I'm sharing the wound that I think for me would benefit from refactoring and reconfiguring. And I wasn't aware of it until this moment.
Describe why it's a wound. What does that metaphor bring?
My character isn't, I'm not bad.
Right.
And holding on to that in whatever way, it's almost, might not be perfect, which is great for Phails. But the idea of trauma itself for me might need refactoring. Because in the idea of my trauma lies that idea of self.
Right.
That the message that I took away from that was the wrong message.
Right. I'm very interested in the question of why people and when people focus their life on healing of wounds and the extent to which people are free to make the choice of focusing on wounds or focusing on growth. Is there a tension between those two? I think clearly many people are wounded, and I'd be the last person to say they should act like nothing's there. I definitely don't want to say that.
Well, I imagine we're all wounded in some way.
Well, it's funny you say that, because I find it easy enough to identify things in my life that haven't gone well, but I really don't. I can honestly say that I don't conceive of my life in terms of repairing those wounds. Now, I'm a privileged, although there are things that have been problematic, I've led a privileged life in many ways. I had a happy, easy childhood.
This is a perfect segue.
Yeah.
Can we pause right there and conclude the questions?
Let's conclude the questions.
We'll conclude them right here. And then, because the second part of this is your life story.
Cool.
We can really learn about David Beaver and like how you came to be this linguistic philosopher, dancer, author, writer. In the transition, we'll have some fun and play.
That sounds perfect.
I'd like to guide us through one of them.
Yeah.
And then I'd like you to guide us through the second.
Well, that's asking a lot, but I'll do my best.
Yeah. I think you'll be fine.
Okay.
I'll give you an option.
Yeah.
You can pick one of 3 games.
Okay.
These are improv warm-up games. One of them we could play is called Soundball. One of them is called Mirror Cat. And the third one is called 1, 2, 3.
I don't know what any of them mean.
I know.
So
I can describe them a little bit.
I'm going to flip a 3-sided coin here. It came up number 1.
Soundball.
Yeah.
I love it. Okay, Soundball. This game, with all these, there's a focus of the game. And right now I have the focus of the game. And I'm going to pass it to you. You're going to say yes. You're going to accept that. The way I pass it to you is I make a sound and I make a gesture. The way you say yes is by repeating that sound and repeating that gesture. The way that you say and is by coming up with a new sound and gesture and passing it back to me. And then we flow back and forth, with sounds and gestures. Sound
Okay.
balls.
Let's go for it.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Boop, 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 boop. Boop, 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 boop. Boing.
Boing. Boing, boing.
Boing, boing.
Whew. Whew.
And this is I think that's a great place to add on some meta awareness or just invite us into some.
I'm curious whether the folks watching duplicated all our gestures.
Well,
and
I hope
sounds.
that you guys have.
Is it a requirement of the class? Do they fail if they didn't?
I mean, if you fail, you succeed on Phil Fails. So,
Well done.
well done. The meta awareness, or this is these sounds and gestures kind of have something around them. They have a vibe and energy. You could call them masculine or feminine. I thought of like the huh as like a masculine sound and gesture, and then the as a feminine. They could also have an emotive quality, whether it was anger, sadness, happiness. Oftentimes they have a happiness. But I'd invite us for the next couple to play with that, to maybe not think of it at the beginning, but consider what was the energetic quality around what was chosen. And I don't know, just bring some awareness to that for no reason at all.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
How did you feel it went? Did you feel that the energy was good?
Well, yeah. Let's keep going.
I felt so too.
Yeah.
Tweet, 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 tweet. Tweet, 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 tweet.
I was laughing.
I know it was my turn then, but you did another one for free, so.
It's your turn.
Bum 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 ba.
Bum, 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 bum. That's perfect.
Oh, thank you.
That is the game.
Yeah.
Soundball.
Did we win or fail?
We did both.
Oh. Okay.
We didn't fail. No, that was perfect. You yes-handed everything.
I thought it went well. I'm curious as to the framing of everything that comes from the title into success or failure, and to what extent we can talk about. We wanted to segue at some point, you said, into talking about life, but to what extent anything is making us categorize chunks of life or an entire life into success or failure. Like, where does that come from?
Yeah.
When I go for a hike, I love hiking. What would it be for me to have failed? I would have failed if I'd set myself a target, but if I went on a walk, that's what I did. It wasn't a fail or succeed.
You're not always qualifying your actions and behaviors into this.
Right.
And I think, well, the way I discussed this, or have previously, is I've got an idea culturally that we have success over here and failure over here. And success is a reward, a certification, accolades, some kind of thing. And it's a location that we want to get to. We want to get to success. We want to be successful. And failure is this thing over here, which is like, you don't ever want to have it. It's bad. It's something you hide. You definitely don't share it on social media. And this is the binary through which our life is. You're a failure. You're successful.
Right.
And the idea with the show, and I've probably said the idea with the show multiple times now, this is another facet of the show, is that I'll reframe this. Success is not a location. It's more like a hound dog that has the scent. Oh, I'm moving towards something. I have the scent. Or Mahai Chihik's Mahai, I've found flow state with something. I'm an inertia, a feeling of I'm not aimlessly. I've a sailboat which has caught wind. I'm moving. I've got movement towards something that I feel like will be fruitful, some iterative improvement. And failure over here isn't failure at all. It's not starting or not doing. So you're either doing something and seeking, looking for the wind, looking for the scent, or you're not doing anything at all. And everything in between there is failure, is learning, is wayfinding.
I saw a quote, and it claimed to be from Abraham Lincoln, but it strikes me as the sort of easy quote that gets attached to different people, and I don't know the history of it. But I thought it was a nice quote anyway. And he said, I don't have any problem with people failing. I'm paraphrasing, but I don't have any problem with people failing. Mm-hmm. What I don't like is people who are content with failing. I think the way it went was, the question is not whether you failed, but whether you were content with it. And I had to think about that. What did that mean? And clearly it meant what he actually was looking for is people that would reflect on their failures. Whether that's Lincoln or not, I don't know. But as a new American, I'm proud to attribute it to Abraham Lincoln. If you'd asked me 3 weeks ago, I would have said it was Churchill. But works either way.
It's ironic that you would say that. I shared this quote on, I'm doing social media stuff around this show right now, and I shared this quote recently in the last couple days. And the quote I shared was, "My great concern is not whether you have failed, but whether you are content with failure." And it is, as I have it here, ascribed to Abraham Lincoln.
That proves it.
That proves it, because I love it. I love it. All right, now your practice. I will follow your lead in a game.
Good.
I imagine it'll be a game of your choosing.
Good.
I was going to say contact improv, but I didn't want to pin you into it. What would you like to do?
We were briefly talking about this happening, so it's not a complete surprise to me. And I immediately suggested something movement-based.
We played it a little bit, yeah.
And we started playing. And the way we actually did it, because you're sitting cross-legged, and we couldn't quite meet foot to foot. So we're already doing it now as you're adjusting in your seat. And here I'm intentionally messing with your framing, just to see what happens. But the idea is, so this is what we started saying, and I'm gonna do just the same as we did before. So the question is, when we're doing this, and you can do this with yourself, but it's harder. The question is, to what extent can I feel not only the bits of your hand I'm in direct contact with, so can I feel, as opposed to seeing your fingers, and so can I feel where there is contact exactly, what parts of my foot are contacting what hand, but also, can I feel more deeply? Can I feel with my eyes closed, for example, what your wrist does? Can I feel your elbow? Can you feel my knee? Can you feel how my leg moves? Can you feel with your eyes closed? Close your eyes for just a moment. What do you know about my position? I shifted very slightly, but I shifted with the top of my body and not my foot.
You went there and then there.
And so you're absolutely right. You can, of course, hear as well. You're getting other feedback. But you might, as you become more sensitive, get a feel for example, where my head is looking entirely through my foot. Yeah. You might feel the ground through me. You might feel, okay, I know if I push this way, it's going to be pushing down into the chair and into the ground. And if you push that way, you're pushing away from the ground. Yeah. And so I want you to become aware of the skeleton of my foot. You're going to have an entire foot episode. There's going to be foot fetishists who are like, Phil Phails is where it's at. It's going to be viral. Okay.
Yeah.
Did you tell me, does anything surprising come from that? Like when you have your eyes closed, just how it's slow.
Yeah, I think.
But how with a little time, you realize that what sounds completely ridiculous, the idea that you could feel someone's shoulder through through your foot and their hand, starts actually making sense. I can literally visualize what's happening to your armpit right now. So I opened my eyes briefly so that I got to see what was happening. But I could tell something was happening.
Yeah.
That's why I opened my eyes.
Connection.
And I wasn't quite slow enough to react to it with just bodily curiosity instead of opening my eyes to find out. So yeah, this is interesting because now you feel different aspects of my hips potentially.
Yeah.
And I can feel into your pelvis. We're getting a very intimate show here, right?
Yeah. And there's that thing you were talking about earlier about the balance between pressure, give and take. This, if I just was like, oh, I'm gonna
Exactly.
do that, that's too much. And if I was to
and why is it too much? Slow down on that. So it's too much for two reasons. First, I might not like it.
Yeah.
But second, you're actually learning nothing about me.
Yeah.
If you do that,
I'm overpowering you.
You're overpowering
this is all me.
But also you don't have any sensitivity left in you. You're not exploring
All my body,
and you're
all my
definitely not
muscles
exploring. So you not only can't learn about my musculature and my bones. And my tendons and my skin and my fascia, the top skin that's moving around. But you also can't learn about who I am as personally. You can't learn about what I want.
Yeah.
All you've learned is that you can squash me. Yeah?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, there's a lot of things you can squash. You can't distinguish me from
An ant.
From an ant if all you've learned is that you can squash me.
Yeah.
Next, bring out the ants. Let's try and do contact improv with them.
I've done dance, a lot of dance, social dancing. I've been a lead, and there is a subtle middle ground of, you can be led by a follow in a beautiful way.
Right.
And you can lead also. There's this communication that's occurring through the body.
Right. What type of partner dance have you done?
I've done. I took a lot of classes, and I did Lindy. I did Charleston. I did some collegiate shag. I did a lot of swing, and then I did two-step. Some
good old Texas.
Yeah. Well, you gotta if you can dance. Austin, Texas is a great town for dancing. If you do swing, you can dance probably maybe 3-4 nights a week to a live band.
Yeah.
If you do two-stepping, you can dance 7 nights a week to a live band.
Right.
And I think that's a beautiful thing.
Right. I've done a bunch of tango with the great tango community here in Austin.
Esquina de Tango?
That's one of the best places you can do tango here in Austin. Beautiful place, Esquina de Tango. Great teachers. And they have live music. Maybe every couple of weeks they'll have a band. And if you love tango music as well as tango dancing, or either one, then it can be a great place to hang out and listen. one of the nice things about tango is that there's a tradition of the leaders following. So this dates back to the roots of tango in Argentina. It moved from Argentina to Paris. It started in Argentina, Buenos Aires, and the young men who were wanting to dance couldn't possibly ask a woman to dance until they were good leaders. So
they would dance with each other.
They would dance with each other. They would teach each other to dance, which meant every leader had been a follower.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's still, to some extent, part of the practice of tango. There's, in much of the partner dancing scene, there are aspects of the practice that date back. All practices are historical and grow slowly. There are aspects of the practices that date to a time when there were very clear gender roles in dance. So even though these tango dancers in private would dance mano a mano, in a public setting, at the dance, the milonga, so called, which is that's what the dance, the big dance is called. It would be men with women, and not only that, but the men would lead, and that still dominates. It's not the case in Austin or anywhere else in the world that the woman can't be the leader, and there are many places where they insist on some sort of freedom. Not only partly that can be in the kind of queer tango scene, but also elsewhere. But there's still a very strong tendency for men to dance with women. So it's hard for me. I like taking both roles. If I go to a dance, a tango milonga, not many men are going to come and ask me to dance. It's basically a meaning with them as leader, me as follower. It's basically not going to happen. So that's a vestige of the history of the practice. Likewise, many women never learn to lead, and they're not comfortable.
Yeah.
Though I think things may be changing slowly. I don't have enough of a bird's eye perspective to say to what extent they're currently in flux. But I think in many dances, I think in the swing scene, there's been a bit of a transition that way.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. When I go to the Fed, you see men dancing with men, and there'll be, and even men dancing with women, and the man is being the follower.
So there's also a fusion scene in Austin, and things are a bit, another dance form, things are a bit looser in terms of who dances with who. And in contact improv, really there's no rules at all.
Right.
And so that's one of the things I like about that scene, that you lead and follow, with it not even being a question of, for a given dance, who is leading and following, but there can be a time when you're yielding and a time when you're more active.
Yeah.
And a time when it's not clear whether there is a leader or a follower.
Right.
And I really like that aspect of the dance.
I like that.
Yeah.
One of the improv games we could have played, Mirror Cat, is one where you act as my mirror, and sometime in that you take the reins without talking about it. It's an energetic thing, and I know, you know, and then I'll follow you, and then I'll take it back, and there's this play of I'm leading, you're following, oh, now you're leading, I'm following, but it's always, we're doing it together.
Good.
We're passing that baton back and forth in a non-communicative, not in language.
Right. Well, and language is what I was thinking there, because I think these are great metaphors for what makes good and productive conversation. The ability to push at times, but yield at other times from both sides. That's going to make for a better conversation than, as you said, just pushing with your foot.
Or just lying down.
Yielding too much is not going to is not going to produce a satisfying conversation. So yeah, I love the metaphor.
Yeah, it is really, it's a good one. Okay, this is the section where I get to explore you and your life story.
Oh, right.
Are you ready for that?
I'm ready.
Oh, you lived it.
I'm still living it.
You're still living it. Where were you born? I guess we'll start at the beginning, which is where were you born?
I was born in England, Edgware General Hospital, which is in a county that no longer exists called Middlesex, but it's really part of Greater London. And then I grew up partly in this Greater London area, partly just outside, but it still looks like London when you see it from Texas and squint. It's a small place called Radlett in Hertfordshire, but it's really looked at from Texas, it's just the London area.
You're in the greater London metroplex.
It's absolutely, yes.
What was the family like when you were born? Mom, dad, siblings? What did it look like?
Right. Well, when I was born, I didn't have siblings.
You were the first.
I was the first of three. My two sisters, Alexis and Michelle, came like 1 3/4 and 5 years later, respectively. And growing up, I was much closer to the next sibling than to the 5-year-old sibling. But as time went on and those differences got smaller and smaller, we've become very close as siblings, and I get on really well with them. My parents had a travel agency that my mum had started when she was 19. And my dad took over when she was pregnant with me. And then they partly over the years did that together, partly he did that. So they were in the travel business, travel and tourism, some other things. And we lived a comfortable existence, I would say, sort of a middle-class existence, you might say, with small business owners. It's also a Jewish existence, so it's a Jewish family, and I think I was always very aware of my Jewishness, although I'm not a believer in the standard theistic way. I still identify as Jewish, and I still find many of the practices of Judaism very natural. So we would have, through my teen years, a Friday night dinner, which was a very good Shabbat dinner, coming together of the family, and I'd be aware of the high holy days, and let's say the week of Passover would be an important one for me. All these things, plus maybe a deeper cultural association with both the Jewish tradition as against Judaism, but the Jewish tradition, ways of being, and simultaneously British, English ways of being. And those were together formative for me, as well as ways idiosyncratic to my particular family. And that is an idiosyncratic family. My dad was idiosyncratic in a legendary way. He was a very special, interesting person who died about 8-9 years ago now, but will always be with me. My mum is doing well. I just saw them a few weeks ago, and my mum and my sister's families are very important to me still.
So on the British culturalization, it's like fish and chips, and on the Jewish culturalization, it's like what is it? Gefilte fish.
And I guess latkes, if we're gonna go there. Yeah, I would say fish and chips and gefilte fish and latkes is a good way of summarizing my background.
Yeah, was it a Jewish community that you were immersed in?
It wasn't a purely Jewish community and not an Orthodox community either. So, but it's a funny thing. I like to tell this story. My as I said, I was born in Edgware General Hospital, and the second house I lived in was in Edgware, and it was a very Jewish neighborhood. Not entirely Jewish, but and it tended to be people kind of like my parents. They weren't all small business owners. They might have been dentists, but there was something professional or small businessy about many of the people living there. And my parents felt a kind of discomfort with some aspects of the culture there, because people were very focused on, let's say, manifesting, displaying their riches that they'd acquired as kind of first generation middle class people, and in many cases second or third generation people in the UK as well. There was something which I guess you might call bourgeois about it, where you would get a little what in the US would be called a duplex, a semi-detached house that would have a gold Rolls Royce, or at least a Rolls Royce parked outside.
This is the $30,000 millionaire.
Yeah, that's exactly where we're at. And I think my parents, they weren't exactly snobbish, but they felt there was something missing there. They weren't anti-Semitic at all, as will become clear. So they moved out to this place that felt much more English, but called Radlett. But within a couple of years, one of the churches on the high street had changed into a synagogue, and there were before long 2 Jewish delis on the high street of this relatively small town. It calls itself a village. Were my parents unhappy that so many Jews had clearly moved out with them? On the contrary, as far as they were concerned, I'm going to use this. This could sound very negative, but I'll call it a better class of Jew. That is, there was something judgmental about the interests of people who'd moved out. They could talk about books. My mum was a member and helping run the Radlett Literary Society for many years, where, and I mean decades, where I mean by Literary Society, it's a place where people would, it's like a reading club where people would read and talk about books. Once every week or two, there'd be a meeting and someone would talk about something that they'd read. And so my parents, my mum had left school at 17. They didn't have the money for her to go to college and so on. She'd later done an English degree and a teaching degree and become a teacher, and a history degree as well. So she developed this love of learning that she didn't have the means to pursue when she was younger, or the space to pursue.
Yeah.
And my dad likewise did some he got a master's degree late in life and was actually teaching at colleges, at universities, in travel and tourism late on in life as a visiting professor, which he was very proud of. And so they always emphasized the value of learning, not because they really thought it was, how should I put this? It wasn't just because they'd been told. It's because that was actually really important to them. They were interested in the different perspectives you'd get in from reading and from hearing different people, and not just although certainly the bottom line and stuff like that mattered as small businessmen, they had broader interests as well, and they really liked the mixing with people who hopefully also would understand just enough about the bottom line to maintain their lives. That is, they would look after, by that I just mean they would look after themselves, but then had the freedom to, which not everyone has, so there's a kind of class element here, but had the freedom to explore a little further.
Yeah.
And I feel that we're very privileged in, most Americans, not all at all, but are privileged enough that there's a lot that you can learn around you. The internet has, for most, but not all people, has brought a lot to us in terms of the availability of learning. It's kind of democratized. It has many bad sides,
Yeah.
but it's democratized access to knowledge to a great extent. Not universally. There are many people who are still living hand to mouth.
So it sounds like your folks were academics or intellectuals, and they were happy that the Jews that moved to this same town were also academics
And also
and
not just the Jews, but they were able to mix in
all the
in a
people
in
there
a yeah
seem to be of that ilk.
and they definitely also enjoyed having some Jewish community around them.
Absolutely, I could imagine.
Because I think a majority of their close friends would have been Jewish. Not all, but a clear majority.
What was your earliest memory?
My earliest memory, and this may have been filtered by being told the story, is of when I was not yet 2. These were trusting days where a kid would be put down for a nap in a pram, a pushchair, but it was like a bigger. Imagine old Victorian style perambulator. Imagine something kind of going in that.
Yeah.
It would just be parked in front of the house. Baby is left inside to sleep in the fresh air. That was normal in those days.
The folks would be at the pub, or the folks would be
no, they'd be in the house.
in the house
but they wouldn't be worried about baby snatchers as people started worrying about.
Yeah.
So my earliest memory is of being outside the house, staring up at the pram, knowing my sister Alexis was in there and saying, "My Pam," and I remember the feeling, whether it's come partly through the story being retold. I remember the feeling of looking up. I couldn't see her, but I knew she was in there. I knew it wasn't mine anymore. So
it wasn't yours anymore.
no, it was hers. The pram had been passed over from.
You still had some
her.
ownership or some connection to this pram, and it had gone to your sister.
Right.
You were saying, "My pram."
Yes, exactly.
Get out of there.
Absolutely. I couldn't release something that was so close to me.
Is there any wild story or unique story around your birth?
Oh my gosh.
I ask this now to everybody because one person I interviewed said that they were born in the passenger side of a speeding car. So now I'm like, I think I need to ask everybody if anything unique happened around their birth.
It's funny because coincidentally, my mum was actually hanging out of the car when I was born, and I was caught in another car that was passing by.
Oh, you're just pulling my leg now.
I don't know of any story like that.
It was a
hospital birth in Edgware General Hospital.
Yeah.
I think my mum did tell me the story of they weren't quite sure about the labels on the babies, and she took one look and said, "That's my son."
So you could be. So if she used
I trust my mum more than I would trust the hospital to label me correctly. I completely trust her judgment that I was her son.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did your mom ever shared with you a duration of birth? Like when I've been growing up, my mom, whenever I think she needed more, collaboration or cooperation from me, or maybe some respect or appreciation, she would share with me the hours of labor that she was in. I was in labor with you for.
No, that's not my mum's habit to make a fuss about that sort of thing. I'm sure that she was very aware of everything she went through, but she doesn't push that weight onto me as a reason why I should behave or anything like that.
Yeah. What's your mom like?
Well, she's over 80 years old now, and she's doing really well. She's someone who I think of her reading a book in the garden. She always read voraciously, and that was like with a cup of tea and a book. That's my picture of her. She's not reading so much anymore. Maybe difficult with eyesight and just finding the energy to focus on things. And to me, this is an interesting thing because she's still very much herself, but that for me was a core aspect of her. And so I have to get used to her having like different ways of being now.
Yeah.
But she's extremely practical. She's very quick to say what's right and what's wrong. I always remember her juggling the kids, 3 kids, working, doing all the cooking and cleaning, and just always, as I was growing up, having dozens of things that she would keep going. Not that she would never complain, but she made it. She just did it all. And so again, she's slowed down, and it's something to get used to, the fact that now doing one thing a day is enough for her, whereas the person I remember growing up would have been doing at least 3 things at any one time.
Yeah.
That this is a sort of change that we all go through. But yeah, she's sweet, funny, and a good mother to the 3 of us, and a good grandmother to all her grandchildren. She loves having her grandchildren come round, and the grandchildren there in the UK are around like every day or 2. There'll be one of them coming round. So, yeah.
What kind of books did she read, or did she have a style?
Well, she read very widely because she did a history degree and so on. But it's novels that dominated her reading. No, I mean, she would have read biographies and autobiographies as well. But I think in my stereotype of what she'd be reading, she'd be looking at like the Booker Prize list and all the books that were out this year. She's got a quite encyclopedic knowledge of a wide range of literature. I
think of someone here in our generation where they would know all the movies. You know, they would know the documentaries. Someone that loved movies would know all the action, the horrors, the documentaries.
I think books haven't left. I think I talk to children now who can tell me about 8 different series of books. They're like, yes, there's Harry Potter, but also they can tell me about lots of different series of books that they're into, and that doesn't seem to have gone away. Not every child.
But I'm thinking your mom would be someone who would watch all the movies, so to speak, of the book world.
Yeah. To
know
some
all
extent,
the bestsellers, to be able to talk about.
She was selective, and there were like my dad, among other things, liked reading what she would regard as kind of trash. He loved like detective novels and stuff like that, and she was always more interested in the stuff that was likely to win literary prizes or that had some literary history. So she could. Yeah, there's kind of a difference there.
When you were a kiddo, did you think of yourself as a good kid?
I didn't think of myself as good or bad, as far as I remember. No. I wasn't doing really wild things, but also this was a time when parents didn't necessarily know what their kids were doing. By the time I could ride somewhere out on my bike, I would just disappear for the day on the weekend. So once I was, say, 14 or so. So before that, my mum would take me to a friend's, like when I was 9 or 8 or whatever. She'd know where I was. But even at that age, there was more freedom. So I think sometimes one of my sisters at maybe age 5 or 6 would take the other sister at age 4 on the bus. There was a place they had to get to. She would take them on the bus. And my sister Alexis likes telling how she liked going with Michelle because Michelle, the younger one, was very cute. And sometimes the bus fare would be like a penny or something. But sometimes the bus driver wouldn't make them pay, or the conductor, and because they were just cute kids. And Alexis attributes this to Michelle's cuteness. I'm guessing they were both pretty cute, but And so then they could buy some candy with the
Fare.
the penny,
Yeah.
with the bus fare. But that shows you the sort of freedom that we had. And you ask about a good or a bad kid. Things that maybe would be bad now were like, well, I remember being in. This would have been at age 12, 11. I think age 11, being in the woods with my friends, chatting to a homeless person who lived there. And he was a lovely guy. And I think my parents would have been horrified. There was nothing bad about it. I wasn't being a bad kid. But they would have been horrified, but they didn't even ask about what was going on. We were playing.
Yeah. I guess some of the areas where I find goodness or badness would be like making good grades.
Yeah.
Or doing the things that you were asked without
Right.
pushing back. Did you make good grades in school?
I was, okay, I'm pretty good at school type stuff.
Mm-hmm. Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was lazy from age, so at age 6, I was in a public school, and the teacher told my mum at the parent-teacher day that maybe I was retarded. So she took me out of that school, put me in another school, like a smaller private school. In that school, in the first year, I was a bit younger than the other kids, but in that first year I got 2 school prizes, one for the like class prizes. One was for, I think one was for science, and the other, I think really surprised my mum, it was for scripture, which I'd never, and that meant New Testament, and I didn't know anything, but apparently I did okay at whatever we had to do. And so I was a kind of a goody two-shoes kid for that 1 year, but also that 1 year, how I remember it. So the teacher, Mrs. Martinez, would write up on the wall. There was each of the names of the kids in the class, and she would write up a red mark or a black mark, according to whether you did something well or badly. And the black marks were the good ones, and I had more than anyone else by a long way. At some point, she needed to write a black mark for me, and she didn't, for some reason, she didn't have a pen or it wasn't working, and someone lent her what in those times counted as high technology, one of these rotary pens that they were like white and blue, and they had like 6 different colors.
Yep.
Mrs. Martinez was not great with technology. She tried to write a black mark, but wrote a red mark by accident and couldn't correct it. And so I didn't win whatever the goody two-shoes prize was, because I had the wrong mark.
But she just had the wrong pen.
And this is how I remember it. I don't know if this is actually right. But after that, I was like, these prizes don't mean anything. And after that, I was extremely lazy and got away with whatever I could. There were some subjects I could skate along.
That darn pen.
Yeah, I know.
That pen. Technology really changed your perception of...
It changed my perception, but I did okay. So, I just didn't have that much faith in how, like, following the rules was going to get me to where I wanted to get to. I was more of around that time, I felt like I kind of woke up and became a bit less innocent and a bit more having a healthy skepticism about anything anyone told me.
Yeah. You turned into a little bit of a grifter that day.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I didn't try and take advantage of people too much, but I'd be the guy that would say, oh, I'm sorry, I don't have my homework, I forgot it. And just like, so there's kind of plausible deniability there that the teacher will maybe let you off 2 or 3 times. By the 4th time, the excuse runs thin and you need a different excuse.
Yeah.
And you could kind of get by being like just smart enough to do okay on the exams and so on. I could get by. And there were some subjects I really liked and I would do well in those. And I did fine.
I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you weren't retarded at all.
Well, it's interesting as a word. What does it mean? It means you're slow. And that's what we're talking about.
Slow thinking.
Maybe I was retarded in a good way.
Maybe you were. You just needed the right context.
I needed things to be slow about. What I do as an academic is find things I like to be slow about. I like to think through slowly.
Mm-hmm.
And I try and help as a teacher other people learn to slow down about some things, think through them slowly. If necessary, read some books, do some experiments, do some study. Don't assume too much too quickly. Find topics where it's possible to learn something and invest your energy into going slowly on those. I don't think that's what the teacher had in mind, Mrs. Croft, in case you're wondering.
Out there.
I'm not
That's
sure.
the one that said you're retarded, Ms. Croft.
She would be, I guess, only 25 years older than me, so she could still be out there somewhere.
We'll find her.
I hope that she had a great career after that.
Yeah. What do you remember discipline in your house? Like, what did it look like? Corrective behavior or disciplinary behavior?
So there was disciplinary behavior, but I didn't take it very seriously. My dad would say when my sister and I had done something, when we were art fighting, for example, he'd say, "If you don't stop, I'm going to bang your stupid heads together." And then he actually would bang our heads together.
He would bang your head.
But I had a hard head. And I'm sure he didn't do this.
Poor Alyssa.
Alexis.
Poor
Poor Alexis. She would burst into tears and he would stop. I mean, he never
because
really...
you've got the hard head.
Yeah, I know.
She's really getting the brunt of this discipline.
Yeah, so this connects to what we were talking about, trauma. She's the one with the trauma.
Head.
I know. And I remember, again, what we would now call capital punishment. We didn't really get serious capital. My dad never really meant to hurt us. But there were things like getting locked. If we were really bad, getting locked in the garage was a thing that would happen very occasionally.
Isolation.
Yeah.
Ostracization in small forms.
I don't remember punishment as, like, also it was normal to smack children in those days, but it was just kind of going out over the time.
So you get smacked a little bit.
But I don't have any memory.
It wasn't like out of aggression. No one was like, there's no trauma around it.
I don't think it was a big part of our childhood anyway.
Yeah.
I have no memory of it, but that was definitely normal then. And the fact that I don't remember it doesn't mean much. I think I'm guessing my parents would have smacked like 3, 4, 5, 6-year-old children, because that was normal, which it wasn't when my children grew up.
Yeah.
But I don't think they would have been trying to leave welts or anything.
Right.
It would have been the sort of thing that you would do. Maybe, I don't know you, Phil. Maybe you would do it for fun if you're up for it later. Like some people these days kind of like this, and definitely it would be no harder than people would also do just as a friendly slap. But if you know someone's mad at you, then it means something different. And you remember it. And I'm sure the point would have been to instill in you a memory of having done something bad. It's the same as the method you use when training an animal. You use some positives, like with clicker training, you try and get the animal to know the exact moment it's done something good,
right?
The reward. But also you might, depending on your training method, you might try and make sure it knows when it's done something wrong.
Could do.
Yeah.
And that sounds like coupling an emotion with a memory makes it more readily available. Coupling a negative emotion with a memory makes it even more so readily available, because we remember negative emotions more so than positive.
That's exactly right. That's the theory of capital punishment. People disagree about its effectiveness.
Yeah.
But that's the theory. And
corporal punishment.
I'm talking about corporal punishment and using the word capital. Corporal punishment.
Capital is killing people.
Yeah, they didn't do that to me. Not as far as I remember.
Thank you.
Yeah, as far as I remember, my parents did not engage
Not
in
effectively.
capital punishment. That's a nice faux pas. Capital is not what I meant.
Corporal, yeah.
I don't use either term very often.
Punishing the body.
Yeah, punishing the body.
corpus.
But I don't think it was a big part, as I say, of my upbringing. I think, yeah, in a way, it's going straight for the body's own reward systems with dopamine and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like we get addicted to things because we get a positive dopamine response.
Mm-hmm.
We get a little high after we've done something, and then we do it again. And likewise, when we're telling ourselves off, and you've been talking quite a lot through this time about through this interview about times when you've told yourself off, and the whole fail is about telling yourself off. And what Lincoln was looking for was people who would tell themselves off just a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think corporal punishment is a way of kind of short-circuiting to those neural processes that we all have inside us as ways that are central to learning. That is, we learn to behave in a certain way when we behave either through getting positive reward from doing it as we feel right, or getting negative reward when we feel we did it wrong.
We're talking about classic conditioning.
In an experimental, so the behaviorists, psychologists would turn that whole thing into, as you say, a paradigm, a way of doing experiments, experimental paradigm that involved rewarding positively or negatively different responses. So it could be ringing a bell
to salivate a dog, or
every time, exactly.
But it's the same thing. What we're talking about with either spanking or giving with humans.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about going to the other side of that? I asked you about discipline. What did felt sense of love and connection? What was like?
Right.
What was
this
that like?
Much bigger for me in my childhood, and we spent a long time because that's where your questioning went on. Punishment, but I don't have a big memory of punishment. My parents let me get away with stuff in general.
Yeah.
And I have very positive memories of every Sunday we would go out, typically for a walk or what Americans would call a hike. Often we'd go to visit some like English country house or to a museum or something like that. But there was something every Sunday. There was a time during which that was definitely part of our education, in the sense that there was a time when on a Monday we had to write something about what we did on the weekend, when I was 7 or so, and my parents made sure there was something to write about. So, but we went out every Sunday, whether for that or something else. I always have good memories of that. My parents, as travel agents, got to take us on a lot of like package tours and also holidays in England. I have very positive memories of some of the places we visited, some places we used to go in England every year, down in Devon in the southwest of England. I loved those visits. Very positive memories of I mentioned Friday night dinner. So we had at least one weekly meal that was all of us. In general, mealtime was a very positive time for us.
Yeah.
But that meal was always a big positive. I remember, silly games of messing about with my sisters.
So with your folks, it sounds like perhaps positive reinforcement was used more so than negative.
I'm not sure that they would have considered all of this to be positive reinforcement so much as just how you live your life together with children. Like, not that they were unaware as educators. Both of them ended up teaching.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think, my mum would never have described putting a meal on the table for the family as positive reinforcement for anything. That was what her parents had seen as important.
Yeah.
That was important for her. And definitely it was a treat to go on
An
holiday
adventure.
together.
Yeah.
But that was a family thing that it wasn't a reward for us for any positive behavior.
It's just family life.
Yeah. And there were some rewards. I remember when they were trying to get me to read, if I did my reading, they would give me, there were these little toy cars, matchbox cars they were called. They would be like little metal cars in a box that so big.
Mm-hmm.
And at some point, my sister and I, Alexis and I, knew where the cars were, and we would like be able to get up on one of us on the other's shoulders and get the cars.
Yeah.
My parents couldn't quite keep track of which were which. So, but anyway, they would use those as positive reinforcement and other things like that. But that was very specifically for things like spend some time reading or doing your math problems or something like that. And later they stopped incentivizing in any way for academic achievement or punishing. In fact, my mum, after being told a bunch of times that I wasn't really giving the homework in, she at some point I think stopped going to the parent-teacher conferences later on. She kind of figured I would do what I would do, and she didn't want to hear anything bad anymore.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
goodness. Do you remember doing anything, like you and your mom having something that was uniquely y'all's thing that you would do to connect with over time when you were a kiddo?
So there were a lot of family things. I'm trying to think which of those would be particular to my mum. Definitely as I grew up, and after I'd left home, we would talk more about books and things like that later.
That's how y'all related, because she was a reader. And
that became more important later. But when I was growing up, I don't remember that as being.
Yeah.
I had different tastes in. Once I was reading, I had different tastes than her.
Yeah.
Like I was reading a lot of sci-fi when I was like 14 and stuff. At that age, there wasn't much connection in that way. I mean, I remember there'd be things that we did as a family.
Right.
Like she would always, but both my parents loved doing the crossword puzzle. And that was very much a family thing where you would try and do the crossword puzzle. I played chess with my dad a lot when I was younger. He was a very good chess player, and I never got to be as good as him, I think. But I remember that being a big part of.
But that was a one-on-one connection you had with your dad. Y'all would play chess.
That was something that we did together. I also remember those family walks. Like I have a lot of memories of us all walking together, and a lot of memories of like we would go to let's say a country house that would be owned by the National Trust. It's like for everyone to visit. And the highlight of that, the thing that everyone in my family cared most about, was basically going to the cafe or restaurant and having like a cream tea or a sandwich. And that was no one. I mean, we enjoyed all the rest of it, but I think the focus was definitely on at least. Everything was built around when we would go for our little
snack
together.
It's funny, I did this when I lived in England. We lived in Summertown when Rachel was going to Oxford, and we would go up to the Blenheim Palace.
Blenheim Palace, right.
And I remembered going to a big part of that was always eating at the little cafe there.
Right.
Doing the hedge maze and.
Right.
But it was always, when are we going to go get some food?
Yeah.
So I had a similar.
But then my mum was very present when I was young. So it's not like there was one activity. She was looking after all three kids.
Yeah. She was a stay-at-home parent?
Well, no. She was managing to juggle that. I mean, she was when we were very young.
Mm-hmm.
But then she went back to working in the travel agency. Once we were whenever we were not, when we were old enough that she wasn't having to look after us minute to minute, she went back to work, and in between kids also, I think. And then she did her teaching degree while parenting 3 young kids. So she'd be juggling, taking us all to our swimming lesson, and then fitting in some, putting us in front of the TV and doing some of her reading for her college work.
Yeah.
And then she had to basically finish high school effectively before she could do college. So she had to do what in England is called an A-level while she had the 3 young kids, and then a degree. And she had no expectations that she would go on, but she found she was good at it and carried on. Yeah.
Yeah. Were you, there was this thing when I was a kid, we were called latchkey kids, when both your parents worked and you came home with a key
Right.
that would be on a necklace, and then you'd get into your house and no one would be there. And there was I grew up thinking there was a little bit of a negative connotation to it, because it meant that, there wasn't a parent when you got home. Did you have that experience?
My memory is of my mum mostly being at home, maybe later, not so much. But I think she would, partly because there was age separation between the kids. So even once I was independent enough to take the school bus back,
there was another young kiddo to be home for.
Right. Until I was fairly into my teen years, my memory is of her being home or making sure we were looked after one way or another.
Yeah.
I think, so I wouldn't describe us that way, but I think we also had enough freedom from quite young that it didn't feel unnatural for me to be alone.
Yeah. Where'd you go after that? So you had this primary family experience. Oh, I had a question.
Yeah.
You were saying, when you said you were Jewish, I've always had this idea that there was persecution of Jewish folks. And I wondered if
there was persecution of Jewish folks.
Well, there certainly
and there
was.
is.
I was wondering if you had a sense of it growing up.
Absolutely. I think right now in America, anti-Semitism is a thing. It's something that there's been the Pittsburgh synagogue mass shooting a couple of years ago brought that to attention. But then, as right-wing sentiment in the US has grown over the last decade, in general, this is one of the themes, has been growing anti-Semitism, and definitely with the big mess in Israel-Palestine right now, we're very conscious right now of anti-Semitism in the US on college campuses and elsewhere. But broadly speaking, America over the last 30, 40 years has been a place where anti-Semitism has been less visible than it always was in Britain. So I was very conscious of there being people that would call Jews Yids.
Yids.
Y-I-D-S.
Meaning that you spoke Yiddish?
No, it's just a negative. I mean, literally, perhaps it relates to Yiddish, but
it was it was a slur, racial slur.
It was just a racial slur, and there were people in the National Front, which was the then most prominent right-wing organization when I was growing up. There would be people, skinheads, as we would call them, so shaved skin. Often they might have swastika tattoos or other. It was quite clear where they were coming from, and they'd be like spray painting swastikas in Jewish cemeteries and stuff like that. This was a thing that you were very aware of growing up, and I was aware of places where young Jewish kids could get beaten up for being Jewish in the area. So in Edgware, there was a very Jewish part of it, but there were also places where you knew the Jews would come into contact with others. So I was also aware of anti-Semitism at a, let's say, at an institutional level, where certain types of jobs there would be more of a privilege for English people over Jews. So there's this contrast between being English and being Jewish. You weren't fully English if you were Jewish for some people. Not quite as extreme as earlier in Poland, where the Jews in Poland, so both sides of my family date back to Poland.
Okay.
If you go back enough generations, and so I only had one grandparent born there. So if you go up to my great grandparents' generation and before, the Jews in Poland in that area wouldn't even have considered themselves Polish. They were Jewish. So it wasn't as extreme, and the Poles wouldn't have considered them Jewish. Wouldn't have considered them Polish. They would have considered them Jewish. They weren't as well integrated as Jews in, let's say, in Germany just before the war, where many Jews considered themselves fully assimilated. And in England, likewise, Jews considered themselves largely assimilated, but they were still aware of being Jewish. And so there was conscious anti-Semitism there was salient anti-Semitism in Britain the whole time I grew up, and I was aware of it in a way that I think many Americans are only just becoming aware of. So in the US, you would be more aware of racism against, for example, the African-American population, and racism against the Hispanic population. Going a few years back in America, Polish people, Irish people, and Jewish people experienced more active racism. So if we're talking about 100 years ago, of people coming into the country in the early part of the 20th century, it wasn't about color of skin, but Italians, Poles, Jews, Irish people.
The latest wave of immigration would be the ones
they were experiencing the racism. All those groups became, accepted as a core part of the American melting pot. And as you say, the later waves were lucky enough to experience racism, unlucky enough, obviously, which Jewish people in the US weren't experiencing at the same level anymore by the time I came into the country in 97. Yeah, this has grown back up to more like the levels I recognized from my youth.
Did you experience physical violence?
Very mild. There was one kid that bullied me a little on my way home from the school bus for over a period of 6 months or a year, but he never hurt me.
Because you were Jewish, or because he was a bully?
I didn't think he was that bad a kid in the end. He was bigger than me. He was a bit of a bully, but he wasn't and I think the Jewishness was part of like the alienness of me relative to him. But I didn't experience very much, but I definitely knew people who experienced it. And my family in England is much more oriented around being Jewish and their Jewish identity. So they go to synagogue much more often. And one of the things that my brothers-in-law are doing as a regular part of their life and have been doing as a regular part of their life for years is helping provide security at the synagogue. That's a thing that Jewish people in Britain have been doing for years.
Security at the synagogue. What does that even mean?
Standing outside the door, looking out for trouble. Being ready to call the police. In Britain, it wouldn't mean carrying a gun or anything.
I feel sadness.
That's been a part of life, and I think that's true for other communities, not just the Jewish community. And right now, it's a part of the American experience too. But I don't think as far as I know, it wasn't so much 30 years ago. I bet it was informally 100 years ago.
Yeah.
And definitely whenever things have got noisy, like when there's a war going on in Israel, Palestine, then there'll be some pushback against Jews, whatever they do or don't think about the war,
Yeah.
they'll experience some increased danger.
How do you, I'm not Jewish.
Yeah.
I was raised like in Christianity type of things, some form or another. I'm not religious now. I sit Zazen at the Zen Center.
So again, you.
I sit Buddhism.
Yeah.
I'll attend some Buddhist communities.
Sure.
And I've had thoughts that I think are anti-Semitic, and I don't know where they come from.
That's interesting. Yeah.
And whenever they come up, I feel like I'm confused. Like, where do these come from in me?
Yeah.
That I would think some of the thoughts, and
Right.
I maybe been exposed some films or some stuff, because I remember I have some distant memory of something about the Rothschilds, like investing in war on both sides, or some picture of a man with his hand around the globe, or
Yeah. So this propaganda influences people, but it's often not the consciously produced propaganda, like the image of the Jewish globalist entrapping people, which is a classic Nazi symbolism. That's picked up on, by the way, by the current right wing. Whenever they talk about globalists, they mean Jews. They're using the resonances.
that's the dog whistle.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's not just through conscious propaganda, but we also pick up these stereotypes in just casual conversation without anyone meaning to be bad or say bad things about groups. We pick up attitudes and stereotypes. And so there's a lot of work on what's called implicit bias, the idea that we can be biased against groups without recognizing it in ourselves. And this is a controversial issue. Some people say it doesn't make any sense, and they poo-poo the idea. Many of the people who take that attitude have some vested interest in maintaining right-wing tropes.
Yeah.
So go figure.
Yeah. It's a slight digression, and I want to get back into your life story, but as you talk about, racism and your experience growing up, I'm thinking about how racism plays a part in my life.
How are you thinking about that?
Well, I was born in Mississippi.
Yeah.
And I was exposed to a lot of racism there, and almost raised in this culture of it, probably more subtly than overtly. I didn't have no one was in the Ku Klux Klan in my family. No one, overtly.
Right.
But it's like I know it through just thoughts.
Yeah, it's terrible. And the peculiar thing is becoming aware of things that you thought were natural seemed ordinary. And I've seen changes in my life. So one very peculiar thing to me now, when I was young, one of the toys that I had with my sister was what was called a gollywog.
Mm-hmm.
It was the most terribly racist doll you can imagine. It kind of like the black and white minstrel style knitted doll that was a black stereotype. And this had a long history.
Yeah.
There were pictures of these characters that looked just like that on the marmalade jars that were the most common brand of marmalade. At some point, my parents got rid of that doll, and you would never see one again. They were the worst stereotype possible. That was normal until I was about 4 in England. And then people realized, actually, maybe there's something kind of weird about this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm sure at that time, a lot of people were saying, well, what are you talking about? It's just a doll. It's harmless. But it was propagating stereotypes. And
they were in cartoons.
Yeah.
They were in, the Chinese characters in cartoons as I was growing up. These overtly.
I'm gonna use a slur term that was common, but I don't think it's harmful now because it's just not used anymore. So people would, in the school playground, insult each other by calling each other a flid. What did flid mean? It came from thalidomide. It meant a kid who hadn't grown up properly because they were one of the victims of this pill that was given to pregnant mothers that ended up producing children who were not able to develop properly. This was just a completely normal way to insult each other in the playground when I was 6. And it took a long time to realize, and there were some other insults I could share with you that were based on, disability. Mm-hmm. Completely normal. And I'm sure people are still nasty to each other in the school playground in this way. But at least this wasn't even a thing that teachers would have complained about. Like, there wasn't any sort of political correctness.
Yeah, there's no education.
But there also was no recognition.
Yeah.
Like, never mind stop doing it. There was just no recognition at all that there was anything bad happening until somewhat later. Yeah, it was just, that was normal. Likewise, people would be telling jokes, Irish jokes, for example, in the Royal Variety performance. Each week, there'd be a show that was broadcast on TV, bunch of entertainers in this big theatre in London, and there was a royal box. There'd be royalty watching. Yeah, the Queen or some prince or whoever. Didn't really matter, but that's why it was the Royal Variety performance. There'd be these comedians who would be telling Irish jokes and stuff like that. Racist jokes about kind of your mother jokes, but or wife jokes that were picking out the very worst stereotypes about women and their place in society. It was completely normal.
Yeah.
And I mentioned royalty because it was like it pervaded society
from top to the bottom.
Yeah. And never mind anyone being cancelled or not cancelled, there was just no recognition that there could even have been a reason why it was problematic. A separate question is, if it is problematic, what should you do about it? That's a different question. But there was just no awareness. And so I think likewise, when we in a moment realize, wait, why am I feeling uncomfortable right now? Is it because I'm not trusting that person on the other side of the street? Why am I not trusting them? Yeah? It's like, oh shit, I've got no good reason. I just saw something in myself that I don't like. Can I change it? I don't know. It's like very, can get wired, as you say, in a permanent, that is, racist practice makes for permanent racism.
Yeah.
Or maybe it isn't permanent. Maybe we can be more optimistic and improve ourselves.
Did the Jewish community have its own outside kind of racism in itself? Did y'all look at other?
Of course, but it's a funny thing. As a minority, it's kind of okay to diss the people with more power. Yeah, but is it okay or is it not okay? I think there's a lot of Jewish racism, and I'm not talking about anti-Palestine. So there's very specific tensions between Israeli Jews and Israeli Arabs. I'm not talking about that.
Yeah,
I'm talking about what you might call Jewish exceptionalism.
What's that?
Well, what's American exceptionalism? It's the idea that America is special. It's the best country. Now, imagine that you are a people who, according to your own mythology had been chosen by God.
The chosen ones.
Does that make you the same as everyone else? Hell no. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
The Lord chose this
But
group.
isn't that what everybody's been doing? All the monarchy was like, oh, the Lord chose us to be monarchy. I mean, this whole divine
Of course.
divinity,
Of course. But then
authority.
by creating, by defining yourself as special, you're thereby automatically at some level disdaining
Yeah.
others, whether it's Jews being special or non-Jews. And I think so my parents were part of the Jewish diaspora. I am part of the Jewish diaspora. So Jews from 2,000 years ago were cast out from Jerusalem by the Romans, right?
And that's the diaspora?
That is the diaspora.
Okay.
The diaspora is the spreading of
Jews from one place. In this place, it was Jerusalem.
They went in different directions into, across Africa and up into Spain, or in complicated paths up through into Eastern Europe, into Germany. So Yiddish is German-like because many Jews settled in Germany before being a lot of them were pushed out of there in the direction of Poland and Ukraine during the Middle Ages, basically. So Jews have been moving around for years, and wherever they've landed, like many immigrant groups, they've become, wealthier. They've made, like many immigrant groups, they've worked hard to find a toehold and then build something that their parents didn't have. I think that's a common immigrant experience for many groups. Here, African Americans are a very special case because they were brought in as slaves. Jews haven't been slaves since Egypt, quite a long time ago, and we're not in Egypt right now. That is, there's no direct connection between modern Jewry and that experience. So Jews having built themselves up in the different places they've been, have always been a proud group, as well as this is, there's Jewish self-hatred is also the kind of Jewish anti-Semitism, if you like, is also a part of another part of the historical thread that's more complicated. But definitely there's an exceptionalism about who Jews are from within the Jewish community that sometimes, in my view and many other Jews' view, can have a negative side of it can amount to thinking more highly of Jews than of others at a first pass before you get to know someone. So I think that amounts to racism.
Yeah.
But we all have our biases. Likewise, you might have a bias towards our own family and against people from different families. Is that good or bad? Like, you might say, well, it seems fair enough to me. Excuse me just a moment.
Yeah.
I don't know if
We've kind of gotten off the life story, and I want to...
Let's get back. And so let me mention...
We can.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Let you mention. Yeah. Well, I was just going to say we can diverge from that, and I think we have maybe about 15 more minutes or so.
Give me just a moment.
Yeah. This guy...
I enjoy the challenge of sitting down around this.
I see that.
Yeah.
Where do we go now? Where do we go now? Part of me wanted to discuss with you. I'm torn between two things, and I'll share, and we can maybe go whichever one feels most alive for you. Excuse me. One is continuing. Where did David go next? Through academic journey and through life experience that brought you here. Like, how do we do a kind of maybe 10-minute synopsis of after being in that childhood experience to here? Yeah. And the other one is, man, I don't know how to talk about or be with what's occurring with Israel and Palestine and
Well,
loving
that's a difficult one.
Jewish people and appreciating and celebrating Jewish people at the same time, really not wanting those experiences for anybody. For either the Israeli folks, I don't want them to have what occurred to them, and I don't want Palestinians to have what's occurring to them, and not really knowing how to separate the Jewishness from all that and just highlight the animal or the cruelty where I see it. And I don't have a direct connection. I've never lived in Israel. I've never lived in Palestine. I don't know what it must be like to have the diaspora, as you said earlier, and then like Zionism and all that. I've just watched documentaries quite a bit to understand, and it seems so complicated.
Yeah, there are different elements. If
Which
we
one
talk
seems
about-
more alive for you? I'm happy to go
Well,
either of those directions.
They're very different. This is very much comparing apples to the Eiffel Tower kind of a thing.
Apples being like your life story for the last 10
And the Eiffel Tower being this huge towering thing that you kind of can't ignore if you're in Paris. It's just there.
yeah.
And it's not homely. It's not intrinsically so personal, and it's hard to argue with. Yeah, but because I feel like this is something that you're finding a resonant topic. So let's go for it. Let's talk a little about this very difficult topic.
Yeah.
Not that I'm putting myself out there as someone with huge wisdom to dispense, but I just have my own positioning that's different from yours, with my different background.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one thing to recognize is completely obvious. Humans do bad stuff. Doesn't mean that they're not responsible for it, that that they shouldn't be, in some cases, punished for it in some way or prevented from doing it. It just means whether those people are circus clowns or school teachers or Arabs or Jews, they're humans.
And humans do bad stuff sometimes.
And they do especially bad stuff when they're in large groups that feel threatened.
Yeah.
What happens when you have two groups
Feel threatened.
that feel threatened? Whether they feel threatened by each other or not, we're already in a dangerous place.
Yeah.
Yeah? In this particular case, we've got two groups that do feel threatened by each other.
Yeah.
Israel as a political entity was imposed on the region by the colonial powers, especially Britain and France, and the Allies more generally. But it was Palestine was a British territory at the time that Israel was created as a separate entity.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of Arabs have been displaced as the result of the creation of Israel, the various wars that have moved the effective borderline around, and settlement and military activity and economics. All these things have combined to force many Arabs away from the places that their ancestors, and in some cases, they themselves or their parents lived. Now, contrarily, Jewish Israelis feel threatened, both because not everyone wanted Israel to be there, including the other Arab states,
Right.
and because that resonates, being under attack resonates with a people who have a recorded history that we tell each other about of literally thousands of years of being oppressed.
Because when the diaspora, folks
The
went to a
diaspora was
bunch
the
of
result of
places-
just one action. So the
places that
if
they
we
went,
tell
they
ourselves,
weren't-
absolutely, they were often not welcome. They often fought their way in to places, and many of the stories celebrated in the Bible are of Jews, with God's help, taking over places. They escaped from Egypt. They were initially wanted there, but then the Pharaoh worried about the Jews and gradually ramped things up till he was killing children. That's how the story goes. Things were pretty bad for Jews in Egypt, and then the Jews left. So this type of story it's a narrative that Jews have been telling themselves for the whole history of Judaism.
So while on one side they're exceptional, they're chosen by God, and on the other side they're threatened exceptionally as well.
This is the narrative. Yeah, absolutely. You've picked out the two special parts of the narrative that, if you think about, if you had that narrative,
Yeah.
what would you do when you felt threatened? On the one hand, you would say, what we always do is fight. We're strong. We find a way to defeat the enemy. On the other side, you might feel very self-righteous, whatever you did. You might feel that you were carrying out God's will.
Yeah.
Yeah? These are dangerous elements to combine.
Yeah.
And there are many people who, for whom these things are not just stories, they're the life they are living. And then there are many other people who are politicians and propagandists who are prepared to take advantage of that, whether they believe it or not.
Yeah.
And who can use that to drive a wedge so deep between the different people living in the region that one side is seen by the other as subhuman, not worthy of treatment as a full human being, not having they're objectified. They no longer have the rights to a place to live, education, or indeed living at all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, I think most Jews in Israel are experiencing a very traumatic situation, as are the Arabs.
Yeah.
On the West Bank and certainly in Gaza. Obviously, in Gaza, they're experiencing the very worst possible traumatic situation. They're starving, dealing with diseases, being bombed. Nothing. This is not something I can even imagine.
Yeah.
How should we feel? So one question is, how should we feel about the Israeli government and military? Another is, how should we feel about Israeli Jews who are not uniformly backing this? There are protests against it, but are backing that type of action sufficiently that Netanyahu and the rest of that political gang can carry on. Right?
Yeah. Well, the first thing,
let me just before you say, and then there's another group, Jews outside of that.
Yeah. That was because where I was going.
How do we feel about them? How should we feel about them? How should you feel about me as a Jew? How should I feel about other Jews?
Yeah. Yeah, and you hit on it perfectly. There's a desire for me to separate Israel Israel and Judaism, Jewish people and Israel.
So there's some such difficult questions here. There's the rights and wrongs of the conflict, and I would be considered very left-wing in terms of my attitude towards Israeli politics. That is, I am the opposite of a Netanyahu supporter. Many Israelis are the opposite of Netanyahu supporters,
Right.
and many Jews in the US and Britain are the opposite of Netanyahu supporters. They might, among those Jews outside of Israel, there certainly are also those that would be more right-wing, but among the left-wing, there might be differences in whether people think, well, military action is appropriate in the case of existential danger. And they might think that the initial Palestinian attack justifies any type of reaction because it shows that there's an existential threat to Israel. There are also many Jews outside Israel, many Jews in America who don't feel that way at all. Perhaps feel that what happened in what's been happening in terms of the initial Palestinian aggression was inevitable, given the policies of Israel that were squeezing Palestinians in various ways. This was actually there's good reason for saying this was Netanyahu's policy. It wasn't merely that is to, rather than looking for solutions to the problem, to actually keep the temperature going up in the cauldron.
Yeah, we heard terms like open air prisons.
Yeah.
That was a word that I started
Well,
to hear.
and if you've been to Israel, I haven't traveled in Gaza, but I've traveled in the West Bank.
Mm-hmm.
You see the fortifications that the Israeli military has built up around the border, and you won't find the prison camp metaphor far-fetched at all. You'd be like, okay, that's what that looks like. Yeah?
Yeah.
One thing in looking at how to feel about Jewish people who are not directly involved, one thing to be aware of is that there are people who are trying to pressurize you into thinking a certain way. So Trump actively tries to push people into thinking negatively of Jews who don't support Netanyahu and military action. He says they're not proper Jews. Trump is very clearly not in a position to tell any Jew whether they're a proper Jew or not.
For sure.
But he doesn't actually, that the Jews themselves are not the audience. They never are. What he's trying to do, as always, is fan hatred. He likes war. You should remember that. He is not unhappy about there being a war in Israel right now. It provides, so chaos and conflict are what potential authoritarian dictators thrive on.
Because it creates the context for power grabs, for taking more power. Whenever there's a war, we have different rules.
It says you need a strong authoritarian. This is why
to protect us from these wars.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. So he likes that, and the people one of the groups that he's a little bit scared of is more liberal Jews who might fund the democratic or at least anti-Trump activity. And he sees a natural coalition with Netanyahu and Jews who would be very militaristic and support that. And likewise sees as his enemy anyone who would be anti that Netanyahu type stance. And he's able to tie in his stance, Trump's stance, with a lot of nationalist, Christian, fundamentalist rhetoric that sees a special connection with the Holy Land.
Right.
So Trump is kind of wanting to don a mantle of a crusader. There's resonances that stretch back hundreds of years that are still found in modern Christianity that people connect with without even thinking. It's very natural to be supporting military conflict against Arabs, specifically against Muslims, in the Holy Lands. That's not hard for Christians, fundamentalist Christians, to buy into.
Because it plays into a narrative of end times.
A narrative of end times, that narrative of end times stretches back to the Middle Ages when there were crusades.
When the Muslims were pushing into Europe.
They were perceived as a threat, and indeed they were a threat. Yeah.
When you go to Spain, you see
the Moorish kingdom.
Yep.
Of course, the word threat one should use advisedly. The Moors were much more cultured at the time than the Christians, in many ways. So the Moorish palaces, if you look at those, they're beautiful. The architecture and the technology that they were using in terms of, aqueducts and so on, was really quite sophisticated. So,
and at the same time, they were the outgroup.
Well, they became the outgroup. So while the Moors had a kingdom stretching across Portugal and Spain on the one hand, and through the Levant, as it then was out into the Middle East and around Africa, I mean, that was the Ottoman Empire and related empires. Within that, they were not an outgroup. They were one of the powerful dynastic empires in the world.
Right.
Yeah. But that's why they offered such a threat. Right. And they also, like Christianity and unlike Judaism, it was a proselytizing religion. That is, Muslims wanted to convert people to become Muslims, and Christians wanted to convert people to become Christians. It's like, well, there's a pretty clear tension there.
You know what? I'm realizing that I opened up a topic that it's impossible to satisfy in 10 minutes.
It is impossible to satisfy in 10 minutes. And I think you've come back to the theme of failing at slow thinking by recognizing that this is a topic that deserves slow thinking.
Yeah.
But I don't think that's a reason not to take a little bite every now and again and just check in at how you're feeling about it.
How do you feel about this time we've shared together?
It's been really positive for me. I've enjoyed the conversation. I've enjoyed the space that you've created, and I've also thought it was pretty amazing the kind of vulnerability that you offered in this process. I didn't know to expect it to be such a personal couple of hours. So, yeah, thank you.
later on, you'll be met with an invitation to return. I'm sure of it. I've enjoyed this.
I would love to. I think there's certainly plenty more we could talk about. At least I don't know if what I would like to talk about would be the same as you would like to talk about.
Well, I feel like we could probably co-create something that both of us would enjoy, whether it's from your book with Jason Stanley, or the book on bias that you've been reading to your students.
Right.
Remind me of the title of that book again.
Well, so I'm teaching a class called Bias, and this is a shout out to my bias students. If you happen to watch this, they're a great group.
Slow thinking and fast thinking.
And the book that they read in the first half of the semester is called Thinking Fast and Slow,
right,
by Daniel Kahneman. Who recently passed away, Nobel Prize winner. And that book condenses about 40 years of deep intellectual labor, and not just his, but he draws together a lot of results in psychology. So if you want to learn about ways that you do things that, on reflection, are a little odd, but that seem perfectly normal at the time, and learn why you might have those ways of being, this is a great book. It's all backed up with a lot of psychological results from work of many psychologists, and it's kind of fascinating. So, yeah, I strongly recommend it.
We could talk about that. We could talk about topics from this book. I think we could talk about anything.
We could talk about our time as working in software.
Yeah, you worked in software too?
I did, after high school and before college.
Oh my goodness, we could talk about that. So we've got some time between now and then to consider it, but I imagine we'll just improv it in the moment. You'll just be sitting there and I'll say, David,
right,
what would you like to talk about today? What could Phil fail at with you today?
Right. Well, I didn't arrive with a plan. I don't feel that it would have been an improvement if I'd had one. I think you'd have found something you could fail at, or something you could change your view of failure on.
Yeah.
Somewhere in the process, somewhere in the mix.
Yeah.
But this has been great fun.
I'm very grateful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Oh man. This has been Phil Phails. I'm Philip Jones. This is David Beaver. Wave to everybody. And today Phil failed at slow thinking. We've had I think a wonderful discussion that went a lot of different places I didn't expect.
It did.
Yeah, thank you so much. Can I have a hug?
Absolutely.
Here, just move this guy. Oh, man, that was great, David.